Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, and we've got a really cool guest today, Deep Cat. He's got a lot of life experience and a lot of professional experience with Lincoln Brewster. Quick announcement, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe and subscribe to the audio and video. If you're already watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button with the bell on the right-hand side. All righty. Lincoln Brewster, contemporary Christian guitarist, singer, and songwriter, and he's also the senior worship pastor at Bayside Church in Granite Bay, California. He's originally from Homer, Alaska. He started playing mandolin at age 5. By 12, he had a band that included his mom on bass and vocals. And in his late teens, he moved to Modesto, California, playing guitar and drums in various high school bands. He was the lead guitarist for Steve Perry from Journey, of course, Steve's solo project For the Love of Strange Medicine. And he also toured with Steve for 6 months from 94 to early 95. It says here Lincoln will be relaxing his 10th studio LP. I messed that up. Lincoln will be relaxing and releasing probably his 10th studio album at the end later this year. 4 of his records have been in the top 3 on the U.S. Christian charts, with 12 singles in the top 25. He also has a live album that he released in 2005. He's also played or toured with Darrell Evans, Michael W. Smith, and again, he's currently the worship pastor at Bayside Church in Sacramento. Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Greg, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Right on, man. Dude, so I looked up Homer, Alaska, and in 2018, it had a population of 5,800. So like when you were growing, when you were growing up there in the mid 70s, like it was probably really tiny, right?
Yeah, I want to say I thought it was like 1,500 or something. Yeah. But did you check out pictures and stuff?
I did not, because
search pictures real quick. It's stunning. It's a beautiful place. But you know, when you're a kid, like you don't have any idea. Like you don't appreciate that stuff, or at least I didn't. So
what's growing up in a little town like that, like in Alaska, which is just so, far removed from the rest of the country?
I mean, it was other than my home life, which was jacked. It was amazing. So it wasn't really a like big league crime, there was no drive-bys or bank robberies. Like we didn't have like serious big league stuff like that. So nobody locked their doors.
Wow, that's amazing.
Like as a kid, like parents weren't worried about their kids. We didn't really have like kidnappings and stuff. It was really it was kind of like a big camp.
That's a great description, man.
It was awesome, and a beautiful place. So, and then the summers were the best because it didn't get hot there. It would get, if we had a nice summer, it would get like high 70s. Was like, oh my gosh, we're in California, we losing our minds. But the cool part was it didn't get dark until, it didn't get dark completely ever in the summer. It wasn't like some people see the things like where it's like daylight for 6 months. That's more like the northern part of the state. And Alaska's pretty different in different parts because it's so big. I lived on the southern part, so it's Kenai Peninsula at the very end of it. So they call it South Central Alaska. And so it would get like dim. Like it was right on the cusp. Like a buddy of mine and I went out and played tennis at like 2:30 in the morning. And there was no lighted tennis courts, it was Alaska.
So it's like perpetual dusk.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And so we had to use those orange tennis balls instead of the green ones. And you could see it just good enough to play tennis at 2 or 3 in the morning.
That's really cool.
But I never wanted to go to bed. Like I'm already a night owl, and it was amazing. It was the absolute best. So again, the home dysfunction, no good, but the town is actually a really, really cool place.
Very cool, man. You were in a band with your mom when you were 12. That's such like an awkward age where you're starting to hit puberty and like sow your oats and be rebellious. What was that like playing in a band with mom?
My mom's awesome. So my mom's a rocker. So it was great. It actually wasn't weird at all. Yeah, she was like the lead singer. She played bass, and I mean, she's the one who got me into music, and so it was actually a ton of fun. It was, yeah, I loved it, and I have this vivid memory though of we played a high school dance with the band, and we I got her to learn some Scorpion songs. And it was right when Rock You Like a Hurricane came out.
So your mom's singing like "Can't Live Without You" at the top of her lungs. That's really funny, man.
Okay, so if you read the lyrics for "Rock You Like a Hurricane," it's awful.
They're like, pretty salacious, all those lyrics, man. Yeah. For your mom.
My mom, full on, man, just got up and like rocked it.
Really? That's very cool.
Yeah. She was full stop cranking the Scorpions. So yeah, we always had music in common. In fact, I was just telling a buddy of mine, actually my guy, one of the guys I work with down at Fender, who I've known forever, named Joey Brassler.
I know who that guy is, actually.
Do you know Joey?
I don't know him, but we have a mutual friend in common.
Dude, you should have Joey on your. Joey's a riot and has insane stories. I mean, firsthand, insane stories. Yeah, in fact, he told me a Walter Becker story yesterday that was unbelievable. And so he was just saying how impacted he was by the Steely Dan's music and all that. And what's funny is I have been kind of rewiring my studio and doing a bunch of stuff here at home, and I have had like the Royal Scam, Asia, and Gaucho on repeat. Just
great records, man.
And I sat my 15-year-old son Liam down and we listened to Gaucho, and I said, just listen to it. And he's like, what is this? And I said, what do you think? And he's like, it sounds amazing. I said 1980. Man, his eyes got big, and I said, they don't
make them like this anymore, son.
I know, that guy suddenly. No, I was like, no, there's no Beat Detective, no Pro Tools. This was, you just had to play it that way. Period. You couldn't, Bernard Purdy, the way that he's laying that shuffle, the halftime shuffle down, you couldn't go in and slice it up and make it perfect. That was just how the guy played,
Yeah.
The touch. I always tell young drummers, like, any drummer can hit the drum as hard as they can every time they hit it. Anybody can do that. But only like an amazing drummer could hit it 35% as loud as he can, but do it every time.
Yeah, that's a tough skill. Right.
Those guys, their control and their touch and is just staggering. So, but to tie that into my mom got me into Steely Dan. And so my buddy Zorro, who's a legendary drummer.
Oh yeah, you told me about him.
Yeah, Zorro's amazing. So, and a huge Steely Dan fan. Zorro is friends with Keith Carlock, who plays with Steely Dan right now, and said, hey, do you want to go? I got tickets. So I called my mom, who's down in LA, and I said, Mom, are you free like such a day? She's like, yeah, what do you got in mind? And I said, I want to buy you a plane ticket, fly you up. Gave her the total red carpet, took her to Steely Dan, bought her the tour T-shirt, we got backstage, it was like.
That's nice, man.
Yeah, and this was like late last year. And it was so cool. It was just, we had an absolute ball, and just that music is absolutely timeless for me, and just love it. Absolutely love it.
It's really cool when you have that, when you turn your kids on to music. My kids are older now, but you know, one of my kids is my concert buddy, and you know, it's just kind of the same thing. It's a lot of fun.
Dude, can I tell you something so rad that
Yeah.
just happened? Like, yeah, it's this developed yesterday and it's happening today. So I was talking to Joey Brasler again, and we got to talking about this whole thing, music and kids and all that. And I showed my son Liam this group called Vulfpeck.
Oh yeah. Corey Wong.
Yeah. I'm like,
yeah, I had Corey on here. Wow. He's amazing.
yeah. Well, so that's funny that you would say that. So I'm talking to Joey and I'm telling him, got into Vulfpeck, and then Liam got really, really into Vulfpeck. So he's a student and he super into it. And Joey goes, well, hey, do you want me to set up a Zoom call so you and Corey can meet? And I was like, yes. And I was like, wait, can Liam jump in with us? And he was like, of course. And so today at 2:00,
you got a Zoom call with Corey.
Corey Wong.
Tell him I said, hey, man.
I will, man. I'm really excited because I'm a big fan, and so it's pretty fun.
He's a really nice guy. And you know, I think he recently got a Fender signature guitar, but all the work he's done over the years is on a blue Mexican Strat that his mom gave him when he was a younger kid, and she surprised him with it. He was home injured or something like that. And he said, I got something. And she goes, man, what's that thing in your closet or something? You know, it was like a cool setup like that. And he went in there. He's like, oh my God. So all that work he's done over all these years has been on that blue Mexican Strat. So cool. Yeah. He's a nice guy.
He's a freak, man. He's just the whole band.
Yeah. They're very talented.
I watched the Madison Square Garden shot on one camera from the side of the stage, continuous shot. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like the coolest concert footage I've seen because it's just that one camera. The guy's standing off the side of the stage for most of the night and then walks out, does things, shoots the crowd, comes back. So it's like you're standing on stage with him. And I think because you don't get the big outshot, you actually, it feels like you're right there with the band the whole time. It was a genius. Who would have thought we're playing a show at Madison Square Garden, let's shoot it with one camera.
Well, the fact that they sold out the Garden and they're an independent band.
I know.
They're just very creative, very smart. They were good with social media. They're engaging. And they work, they work really hard.
Yeah, they work. Yeah. Their stage set was genius too.
What's that?
Their stage set was genius. It's like, it was like a house, kind of like a couch, and
how their videos are. It's the same thing.
Like a desk over here, like a little lamp, I think, and like a coffee table over here. So when one of the guys isn't playing on a song, he's go kick it on the couch.
That's so funny. That's what their videos are like. They probably just said, what's our best performing video? And what's the, what does this scenario look like? And maybe they just duped it for the show. Because all their videos
space or something. But it's so creative. And
yeah, they're very creative.
You know what I think it is, which is so hard to do, is it's fresh.
Yeah.
It's some people go like, it's that whole value of like new or different. But sometimes people forget that it still needs to be good.
Yeah, man, they're very good. All those guys,
for staying power, it's got to be good.
Yeah,
and yeah, their stuff it's different, it's new, it's fresh, but it's really good.
They're all super talented musicians, man.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
man.
I was blown away. Like they're playing this song, and the drummer's just crushing it. I mean, just it's old school grooves, and then the guy is up singing and killing it. And then the next song, the singer's playing drums and killing it. And the drummer's singing lead. And
yeah, it's really different. Like what you said, they're very just talented.
Yeah, just killing. Sorry, it's become a commentary about Vulfpeck.
All good, man. All right. So you moved to Modesto.
Yeah.
And you're starting to advance in your music career. You get a record contract. For whatever reason, things didn't feel right for you. So if you could talk about what happened next and how that changed your life and how things today are different for you because of that, because this is an interesting story.
Yeah. So it was a record deal to do instrumental music. And it was in that era of Shrapnel and Cherry Lane and
were you playing metal then?
Well, it wasn't. I was doing guitar instrumental stuff. That was when around the time Surfing with the Alien had come out. Vi was doing his stuff. Then there was that kind of young crop of guys.
Which at the time was probably like Paul Gilbert.
Yeah, Richie Kotzen, I think,
right.
And brand new. So it was that group. And
so was this a deal with Shrapnel?
No. My guitar almost fell over.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's a strat, it'd be fine.
Good catch. Yeah.
Try to break it. Still got those cat-like reflexes though.
Well, I tell you what, if it was a Gibson, you wouldn't have been so cavalier because That's
right. The headstock will break before it hits the ground.
Absolutely.
So it was with a different company, and the music was a little more like I've always had a little bit of like the rock side, but then a little bit of a mellower side. And so anyway, I got this deal with them.
And you're what, 19, 20?
No, I was how old was I? I was maybe 18.
Okay. Very young.
Yeah. And I was 18 and then turned 19 while we were trying to figure the whole thing out. And is that right? Anyway, it was something like that.
Sure.
And, it just, it didn't make it for whatever reason. Who says no to that? But something didn't sit right with me about it. And
you actually went back to them and said no?
I did. So
what gave you the courage to do that? Because that is really not ballsy. I just think it took a lot of courage to do something. I mean, you had to really to be that young and allow yourself that's what it is. To be that young and allow yourself the freedom to make that decision, as opposed to on autopilot. I got this, without what was that filter in the middle that allowed you or gave you pause for thought? That's pretty astonishing, to be honest with you, in a very good way.
Well, I think I had this. I don't want to call it a conversion experience, but I had a pretty powerful spiritual experience on Valentine's Eve of 92, which was right around this time. And I grew up like not having a sense of peace at all. Like it was, music was my outlet. I tell people guitar's been a really good friend over the years. It was kind of my, hey buddy. It was kind of my, my thing that I do. Hey, I was just talking about you. Yeah. I'm doing an interview with my friend Craig. Do you want to say hi real quick? Craig, this is Liam.
Hi,
He's
Craig.
my youngest.
What's up, man? Listen to that Steely Dan, brother.
Oh, yes.
And did you get the time moved?
Yeah, we got it moved.
I'm so excited. I was just telling Craig about it.
Yeah, that's going to be so sweet. Okay.
He's excited.
Yeah, who wouldn't be, man? That's a good thing.
I know, right? So I had this conversion experience that I was down in LA at a friend's apartment, and again, it was, I had just never felt, I guess, at rest in my soul.
And this is because you mentioned a couple of times you had a crappy childhood, and so that was as a result of that.
Well, I want to clarify something because I want to make sure that I give honor where it's due.
Yeah, sure, man.
I almost had like 2 childhoods at the same time, and one of them was really gnarly and one of them was great. The super gnarly one was my stepfather, who Craig, are you hip to that Deadliest Catch TV show? Discovery Channel.
The fishing show.
Yeah. So there used to be a boat on that show that they were one of the most kind of popular boats called the Time Bandit. And it was the Hillstrand family. So those are my ex-stepbrothers.
Wow.
Yeah. So their dad, John Sr., was my stepdad. So I was the youngest of 8. There was 5 Hillstrand brothers, and then my sister, then my brother, and then me.
Oh my God. So when your mom got together with him, that was like the Brady Bunch squared or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's hectic. Holy crap.
Brady Bunch, like
exponential. The dark side of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty messed up, and a lot of dysfunction, a lot of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, sexual abuse. It was
how long did that go on for, and how old were you when that started?
So we went out, let's see, we lived in, I'll give you a quick little run up here. So my mom had 3 kids by the age of 19.
Okay. Not unusual at all for that time.
Right.
To be honest with you.
So my dad.
In fact, I would, if I said maybe in Homer, she was probably a few years late, even. If I may be so bold.
Yeah, your first one at 16. I was like, what took you so long? Now that you can go to jail. So she and my dad, my dad became a Mormon, and things got kind of weird with him. So she left. I was born in Fairbanks, left Fairbanks, which is a place where it doesn't get light, it doesn't get dark in the summer at all. And we went down to Homer, but so single mom, no money. We lived in a cabin out this road called East End Road, which, by the way, East End Road is where, do you know a singer Jewel?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Is that where she lived?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I went to school with her brother, and her dad used to come to our elementary school and yodel and stuff. And
that's wild.
It's funny. I never met her while I was up there. But anyway, we lived in a cabin, no electricity, no running water. That's how I started. Then my mom met John when we moved out to the end of the Homer Spit, and I lived right on the ocean. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I've studied, because I had some Mormon friends a while back. When a woman leaves a relationship with a Mormon, especially with kids, it's pretty rough. I mean, there's a lot of fallout from the Mormon church itself, or at least there was, or at least that's what this show portrayed.
Yeah.
So it must have been not easy. Bad enough having 3 kids, no money, and on top of that, you got to deal with this like oppression or like ostracizing kind of crap.
I think back then, you know, it was early 70s. So I don't, well, there's a couple of things that make that more devastating. And one of them is when somebody has built their whole life around it and they become enmeshed in a community and then opt out, that's different, because you're not opting out on just your faith, you're opting out on your life.
Yeah.
It's everything you know, it's every relationship, 360 degrees, devastating. It's kids that have friends and you shared this common thing about life. It's woven, it's everywhere. You couldn't go in sort of extreme. So in my mom's case, and we haven't talked about this in depth, but it was like my dad became a Mormon and my mom said no. So she was never.
Okay, so she got spared in a sense. A lot of yeah.
So she
that give her credit, because that took a lot of courage on her part.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're 19 or 20 and you got 3 kids and you're like, man, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
So there's something must be going on that, like, the same way you were able to look at your record deal and give it some thought, that's kind of like what she did with that situation. She said, you know, I'm not going to dutifully follow this. I've given this some thought. It's not right for me. And then I'm going to painfully exercise my option to leave, but it's not. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a parallel in a sense. It's really,
yeah, I've never thought about that. I definitely see that. My mom's a very resilient, strong woman, and she's got a cool combination of being those things, but also she's incredibly compassionate and loving. And you know, I remember one time going, "Mom, you could make someone feel sorry for Charles Manson." Like she, well, you know, he never, you know.
You know what I found, man? One thing I've learned from doing all these interviews, because like I'm coming up on almost 700 interviews, and I've always tried to, I had a shitty home life as well. And so I never felt I knew anything. So I've always tried to learn from looking at other people and listening. And I've learned in the last 5-6 years, and it's been hammered home in the last 3 from this show, that generally the most compassionate, the strongest people do tend to be the most compassionate. It's interesting because you may not look at them, and sometimes their strength is so, they lead with that. But I have found that that's the most, and I never knew, you know, like don't mistake kindness for weakness. I always thought that the two were mutually exclusive.
Oh yeah.
And it was a war I waged within myself, to be honest. But now I've realized that generally the people that are strong are also quite compassionate. Yeah,
I think that's really astute. I feel like that. Like I feel, you know, we all obviously judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions.
Hang on a second. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge. Yes. Yeah. Right.
So,
because you hate when someone says, don't you hate when someone says, well, I know he acted horribly, but he meant well.
Yeah.
I don't want it. You don't get a pass, man.
Right. But we give ourselves a pass because you go, well, what? I know that I did that, but I meant well. And it's right.
I don't.
You're not saying, you're not excusing the behavior.
Right.
There's a thing in all of us that goes, yeah, I know that was not the right way to do it, but there's I see what you're saying there, which we're just not as willing to give other people, I think, in general. So all that to say, I just I'm a super, super compassionate person. but I think because of the way the things I experienced growing up, and I was actually in real danger a lot, I had to learn to protect myself. And I think that for me, that gets read first. And sometimes the compassionate side that's there gets missed, which is a bummer. And it doesn't help doing what I do. That adds another layer.
The problem is, because I went through this, and what I've learned is these like defense, it's basically defense skills that survival skills you needed to get through this. The problem is, for me, what I've learned from what happened with me, and I think it happens with a lot of people, is there's no transition once you leave that environment. It's not like there's a fairy that comes along and says, hey, guess what?
Yes.
The world isn't like this.
Yes.
You can be relaxed. You can be open. And so you walk into the world with this with these survival skills. But the problem is, at least for me, once you get in the world, those are no longer skills that serve you. They destroy you and others around you, because it's like, it's like, the guy who comes back from war and he's got PTSD because 3 days ago he was murdering anybody in his sight, and now he's in the produce aisle at Walmart.
Yeah.
There's no transition, man. There's no like, hey, man. And that happens when you grow up in a rough, when you have those skills.
It's so true. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I'm still dealing with. I go to counseling once a week, and for me, it's like, it's some of the best money I've ever spent in my life.
Oh yeah, man. All that kind of stuff. Getting healthy.
Well, I try to tell people that it's interesting that there's stigmas attached to things, and but my approach is like, every one of us on earth goes to a counselor. Everybody.
Yeah, it may not be right.
Most of us go to well-meaning idiot counselors that we call friends,
right,
who have no idea the science behind how the brain's wired, the fact that it can be rewired, how events that fire together fuse together, and they can be unfused, but there's a lot of really cool things. It's one of the most beautiful things about the brain is it can be rewired.
Yeah.
Stuff can be repaired. But if you think about it just in terms of how haphazard this can be for people, if you need surgery on your knee or your heart, or, it's the thing now, right? It's Google best
knee surgeon.
Yeah. It's like, nobody's going to go like, hey, my buddy he like watched YouTube and thinks he's like, how hard can this be? No, nobody would do that with, with anything. I want to go to a good doctor. Doctors aren't all the same. We put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the brain, anybody will do. I'll ask my friend.
No, I'll ask the bartender.
Okay. America's counselor. And we would never do that with any other part of our body. And so, and even counselors are different, not all of them are good. It doesn't mean.
Oh, absolutely. Just like every other profession.
It is. So
it's a bell curve, man.
So I found this gal is unbelievable. She's really great. And
once a week, man, I hope she's got a wing of her house named after you at this point.
I know, right?
Good Lord, man.
But you know what? Listen, it's I think too, doing what I do, like being a pastor, as just that alone, I'm a fan of, if you are a pastor at a church, you should be doing it once a week.
Yeah, because you're practicing what you're like, in a sense, you're honing your skills.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
there is, so this is a whole nother, I didn't really fully answer your question about the record deal.
We'll get back there.
Okay. But it's related to this faith conversion thing, hugely. But what was I going to say?
You're talking about you're a fan of any pastor should be in counseling once a week.
Yeah. Okay. So check this out. You know, a lot of people go, I've heard this a lot. Christians are hypocrites. That's pretty, right?
Yeah. You could fill in the blank of any religion, to be honest with you.
Right. But my answer is yes, that's exactly right. It is ingrained into it intrinsically. So to be a Christ follower and to acknowledge what the Bible says about it is to acknowledge that you're flawed and that you can't get it right.
Okay.
It's the whole concept is no person can get it right. That's the idea.
Okay.
And somehow, I think a lot of, maybe it's the way it's been presented so much, is it's the guy preaching has gotten it right somehow.
Okay. So now you're talking about like reality in a very serious way of not just a pastor, but of every freaking guru online in the world.
Yes.
Because for some reason, people forget that he or she has the same crap going on in their life as you do. They don't, no matter how much money they have, they need more. Their kids don't pay attention. They got bills to pay. Their parents are a pain in the ass. Their in-laws suck. Their husband or wife is not, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
all of it. Yes.
People I heard this quote many years ago. It said, most people are born, then they spend the next 50 years looking for another place to plug their umbilical cord into. And unfortunately, by and large, that's a pretty true statement. Everybody's looking to, like, when I say everybody, the masses are looking for that. They feel somebody else has a better answer. And many times they do, but it's just an answer, man. And they may not even use that answer themselves. Life is tough, man. You just do the best you can any given moment and hope, for the best.
So I think I would reframe that a little bit.
Yeah, man.
It's a heavier conversation, but
my guru told me that, so you can't reframe. No, I'm just kidding. I think I read it in the book.
Okay, so it's this idea of understanding really clearly who you are and who you're not. And I look at it kind of like a compass. So growing up on boats, doing commercial fishing, we would set a heading, and sometimes you'll get off of that, but you always know where you got to go. So you'll drift this way or this way. And in life, obviously, sometimes you can go the opposite way. But
sure,
if you have your heading set, your North Star, that's the way that you're like, that's where I ultimately want to go. I want to be biased in that direction no matter what. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people can make is demanding perfection from themselves or from anybody else.
It's like such a waste.
But it's like, Here's the crazy thing is, like, we all have these things called core beliefs, every one of us. Most people don't know what their core beliefs are. If they had to say them real quick, they wouldn't know what they are. But those core beliefs dictate everything they do in their life.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
it's like, I won't get on a train. Why not? I won't get on a train. You know, some people have these things where you just go, okay.
No, you know the one I like? I'm always late. What the hell do you mean? You got a late gene? What the hell do you mean? I don't even understand that. I mean, just get up 10 minutes earlier.
Okay, so that they turned kind of a thing into a core belief.
Right. Right.
And so it's like, first you got to identify what your core beliefs are, and then go ask yourself if you actually believe that stuff.
Right.
Like, challenge your core beliefs to go, like, yeah, I just make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, right.
It's like, okay, so that's been a kind of a game changer for me. So it's
what's been a game changer? Learning about the core. Challenging your own core beliefs to because that's how you grow, man. You figure out, okay, I have this thought pattern in my head. Why do I have it? It's totally wrong. Especially if you had a rough childhood, you got to just assume everything in there is pretty much wrong. I mean, that's what I have found out for me. You know, and you got to you have to rewrite your whole ending, like, on a daily basis almost, to like be more realistic with the world and not the world you grew up in.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's this: what do I actually believe currently, and then do I believe that stuff once I can? So beliefs determine actions.
Yeah.
It's how it works. And actions determine destiny ultimately. And so I believe that what those beliefs are is a big deal.
Yeah, huge.
They're running the show. That's your navigation center.
Yeah, man.
And, you know, like you were talking about earlier with these things you grow up with, like defense mechanisms and things. If I walk into produce aisle at Walmart and I think somebody is going to harm me, and I have this core belief that every person is out to get me, that's going to drive my actions. And when one person goes, hey, do you know where and you throw an elbow and end up in jail, and now you have a record, it affects your destiny, you know? And so on the sort of reframe of like, kind of do the best I can, I think, yes, I've just, since this conversion experience that I had when I was 19, where I
talk about that. What happened? So it was the night before Valentine's Day, 19.
Yeah, I had some experiences like, I'd been invited to church a couple times. I was dating a girl who was a Christian, and invited me, like, it was like Christmas and Easter, and I had a couple of experiences that were like, rocked my world. There was one where I almost had this sense that, like, God was pursuing me. It was really weird. And my house was so not, I had no reason to believe that. I had no background, no upbringing. I didn't know anything about it.
So even though your biological dad became a Mormon, there was, outside of that, there wasn't any kind of...
He was no part of my life. So
yeah, okay. So that was like religion was not a thing in your house.
No, other than we all hated televangelists. I had a friend in Alaska. He was a friend of my mom's, got really drunk one night and saw one of these guys come on TV and shot a hole in his television. Like,
okay. Bit extreme, but I get it.
Alcohol will do that.
Yeah, man.
So, 'cause, 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 '
I'm in Homer. It's 2 a.m. and I'm totally loaded. I mean, of course, what are you going to do?
But it's, I think if you really kind of try to extrapolate that, it's this anger that people have to something that looks disingenuous in the name of God. Like,
yeah, but it also could be something going on. You know, they're just sometimes that stuff you get angry. Like I know myself, sometimes I get angry at something and I don't realize it later, but I'm angry at something I feel brought out a weakness in me.
Oh, that, yes.
You know, like, you know,
I happen to know,
but that doesn't connect right away.
I know the guy, or I didn't know him personally, but I know the show, and it was like, what? It actually wasn't a good guy. And he was a money grubber, and you know, it was. I think people just get fed up with that, where people get manipulated and they give millions of dollars, and you know, there's guys out there who just off of, you know, salary or what, you know, have hundreds of millions of dollars. You know?
Oh yeah. They're no different than like some of these guys, no different than like, you know, Nigerian email scams, man.
It can be a little wacky. And so I don't read the Bible that way. And so that's a hard thing. But where was I at before that? I
conversion experience.
Yeah. So I'm down in LA, and oh no, I was talking about going this pursuing, like God pursuing me, and this thing that like stuff kept happening to me that was really bizarre. Like I would be out and just randomly run into a person, and they would say something, you know, and it was pretty wild. So I go to this Easter service with my girlfriend, who is now my wife, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we've been married 26 years, and we dated for 6 years before that.
Right. So you've been together 32 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which is evidence that there's a God, that that he's merciful to me.
That's pretty, 32 years is a long time.
So I'm in church. I go to this Easter thing, and it's a small church in Modesto. And there was this like drama team that came through to do this Easter drama. And it was a kids drama crew, like 10, 11, 12-year-old kids from Corpus Christi, Texas. And they did this Easter presentation, and I couldn't tell you almost anything specific about it. But I remember feeling very compelled. Like, I don't know, it just really spoke to me. And so at the end of the drama, I mean, this church couldn't have held more than a few hundred people. You know, it wasn't a super big place. And everyone stands up, we're all clapping, and this little boy is standing on the stage, and it looks like he's looking at me. But, you know, I'm like, and he's kind of staring a hole in me from the stage. And I'm like, this is weird. And he starts walking down the center aisle of the church. And everyone's clapping, all the kids are still standing on stage, and everyone's looking at him like, what's going on? And he walks down to our aisle, or our row, and scooches past people and stands right in front of me. And I'm like, pretending like he's not there, like this is not happening.
Yeah, that's weird.
And he tugs on my sleeve. And I said, you know, what's up? And he said, is there anything you want to tell me? And I was like, no. And he's like, are you sure there's nothing and I was like, I don't want to tell you anything. And
so it's getting a little creepy at that point almost.
Yeah. And so I left and went and sat in my car in the parking lot and just burst into tears. I think because I kind of knew where all this was going, and it got to the point where it was just undeniable. and then I was by myself at a friend's apartment in LA right after that. And actually it was a while after that. And I just like was afraid, I guess, to like lay all my cards on the table. As weird as that sounds, like just
No, it doesn't sound weird, man. It's like if you're not in that world and all of a sudden you're going to like consider entering that world, it's kind of random unless, yeah, I can understand that.
Well, and okay, so we were talking about the Mormon thing and how like crazy that would be to leave that. I was almost in that, but in the reverse.
Right.
So my whole world was everything but this.
Right.
But I guess in that moment, does that make sense, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that moment, though, I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was just afraid more to look at my own truth, my own life, what was going on in me. And I was able to kind of do that. I just felt like I laid all the cards on the table. And, there's a thing in church people call like the sinner's prayer. And I didn't know any of this stuff. Like, kind of knew there was this thing that, which, by the way, the sinner's prayer, like there's not a specific thing. There's a lot of misconceptions, but you got to say the right stuff. You don't. So I was sitting there by myself. It was 2:00 in the morning, and my sinner's prayer sounded something like, "Hey, so I don't really know what I'm doing. Jesus, I think you're real. I think this is all really happening. And whatever that thing is that you do when you come in and kind of take over somebody's life, I want that. And I'm ready.
Wow.
I'm ready to surrender. And so if you could do that, that would be great." Like it was a very raw, just, I wasn't in a church. There was no pomp and circumstance. Nobody cheered for me. And I knew there would be costs associated with it. Like it wasn't.
What do you mean costs?
Ridicule, which did happen.
Like from who? Like from your stepbrothers or something?
We were in Modesto at the time, so I was away from them, but their family a little bit. Gosh, the local music store was terrible. They were brutal. I mean,
really?
Oh, freak! It's funny. Christianity is the one faith people feel very comfortable with obliterating you. They wouldn't even think twice about it. Now, I'm saying, I don't want to say let me rephrase that. Many people of faith get ridiculed, but I'm talking about in sort of the conventional public eye.
Yeah.
Christianity is definitely it's okay in a lot of circles to be more critical. But for me, it was just this, it was a very real, very profound experience. And here was the one thing, and I didn't know any of this ahead of time. So like, I didn't know the Bible at all. I couldn't have told you a single verse. But there's this verse that talks about this peace that God brings you. And, the way it's worded in one of them, there's lots of different, the translations all say the same thing, but they might be worded a little different. And there's one that's really cool called The Message, which is a paraphrase based on sort of how they would have talked in the day.
Mm-hmm.
That was done by a guy named Eugene Peterson. It's really, really cool, actually. If you've never read the Bible, or if you picked it up and read it and went, I don't get it at all, go to the Message version. And you can look it up online. There's a cool website, I think, called Bible Gateway. You can go read, and in fact, let me see if I can find this. But
it's amazing that you got ridiculed. I could see some people giving you a bit of a hard time, but like basically initially, and then support. Like, I don't know, man. I
know I was told I was stupid. How could you believe that? And then I was actually in the music store one day, and a guy like dismantled my theology right in front of me at the freaking pay counter.
Yeah, I don't generally. This sounds mean. I'm not generally vested in anything anybody else does to that extent. To be very, like, do what you want. Like, who the hell am I to, like, why would I care? I don't mean that in a negative way, but like, do what you want,
Yeah, and it was. I think the other thing for me was it was so profound. It was, and in this peace thing, like I had never had that. I don't think I had spent a day of my life with my soul at rest.
And this seemed to give it to you,
dude. It was crazy. Like, I do this, have this encounter, and it was like, I'll never forget it. Like, I slept that night like I've never slept ever. It was like instantly this sense of peace that I can't describe. I can't attribute it to anything else. And it was like right then, all this, like this record decision, and it was like everything that was murky got clear. And that was now listen, hear me say this. There's also another Bible verse that says, in this life there will be troubles. And believe me, I've had plenty of trouble since then. And it's this isn't a magic, hey, become a Christian, your life's perfect.
Right,
No.
right.
It's, you have a different framework to work from. And the whole thing of I'll do my best. I guess I just rely on a different strength now. And it's where mine ends is where God's begins. And there's a cool scripture verse that says, when I'm weak, God is strong in me. And it's a little bit of, it's this surrender idea where to the degree I'm letting go is to the degree that God's strength's working in me, and it's not my own.
Which is like really a healthy thing in general. Like, I feel like that. I don't have any religion in me, but I have a spiritual connection. And I feel like when I've let go of stuff, I'm just more at peace, period. Because it's not up to me anyway.
Yeah. It's the myth of control. Yeah.
It's like, I can't will all this shit myself. I'm not, Karnak. Well, I mean, seriously, like, what you could only do a couple of things, do your part. And then, I have a buddy, and we talk about this stuff all the time. And he said, don't be part of the results committee. And I'm like, dude, that is awesome. Yeah. I'm living my life by that. And like, whoever you're turning it over to you, if it's Jesus, God, the universe, whatever, man, I just think that's a healthy thing to do, because it's like, you don't have to carry all that stuff around yourself.
No, we're not made for that. Clearly, humans are not made for that. And I think everybody has a sense of that. Okay, so dude, check this out. Here is like this. Okay, I'm going to read you the King James. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus, which is cool. I had like English Standard would say kind of the same.
So they have all like the different versions of the same thing there.
And this is English Standard, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So they're really pretty similar. Here's the Message. This goes back one verse. I'll try to see if I can. It breaks up the verses a little bit differently. Message version. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life.
Right. And so that's what happened to you in that moment.
Yeah. So that's the Message version.
And that was like layman's terms.
And what Eugene Peterson found out was that was how they talked. So translating from Greek to English, which the New Testament was written in Greek, Old Testament was written in Hebrew, the translation would have sounded arguably more like that. Because it was more kind of layman's terms or even street slang.
Yeah, that was easy to understand. Hey man,
Yeah,
clear is clear.
So the Message is fantastic. It's great to read because it just puts it in a package that most people it'll make sense. And so that happened to me before I knew that scripture verse ever existed. Which was kind of cool to go through the Bible and like find things that had happened to me.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
I knew that the first scripture I learned was, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life?"
Right, right.
So like, gosh, no kidding. There's no benefit to worrying ever. And so that sort of foundation in that relationship, it was just going, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? Like, what do I do today? And it was like, I felt pretty strongly, and I'm not one, like, God spoke to me crystal clear. I'm never super confident in that. Like,
it just sounds like you opened the channel of communication and like turn on your antenna is what it sounds like, to be willing to receive that. It didn't sound like, and then I downloaded what the next 10 years should be like. I don't think I think you just said you had this experience which allowed you to make a connection and open your mind to following in the path of certain idioms or core beliefs, as you said, that were aligned with.
Yes, I think that's true. And it's funny when I hear people go, God spoke this to me crystal clear, and I knew that. I'm more like, I think this is God talking to me, but I don't really ever know until I do, until I act. And it might be like, buy that person's coffee, and I'll just feel like I think I need to do that. And I'll do it, and some crazy story will come out of it. And I've had conversation with people in the coffee shop, and they've been in tears, and really impactful things that came from these. It's called the still small voice. It's like you kind of just want to keep your antenna up and know.
You need to find that kid. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, right.
No, seriously, you need to find that kid and just like tell him what went on, and like if he remembers, it was a long time ago, what was going through your mind, and the off chance he does.
I know, you never know. And so that those kinds of things, even when, you know, after I got, I mean, I prayed about getting into Steve's band.
Yeah. So talk, hold on one second. So I just want to take this back to the record contract. You came to your mind, you said, this is not the right thing for me to do. And you just told them, no, thank you, I would assume, or something like that. And they said, you're crazy. How can you blow this off? Everybody would want this, blah, blah, blah. And you said, I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. But
I had that actual conversation as a kid. And yeah, this guy was going, you're out of your mind. Nobody would turn this down.
Right.
And I think I said nobody but me.
Yeah. Well, it didn't matter. It's not his business at that point anymore either, to be honest with you.
No, it wasn't. But I felt like I knew. And then I think like 2 months later, I'm working at Wilson's Leather in the mall.
Wilson Sporting Goods. Holy crap! Yeah, man.
No, it was just a leather shop. It was.
Oh,
I think it's a West Coast.
Oh, okay. We had Wilson Sporting Goods here.
I know exactly what.
Okay.
So it was a leather store, and I got a job, like seasonal help for Christmas, and then I stayed on, and that was kind of my job. And as a matter of fact, my mom gave me this.
This is Lincoln's leather jacket from Wilson's Leather Shop.
My mom gave me this. She saved this and gave me this for Christmas. Look at this.
There you go. Wilson's suede and leather. Lincoln. There you go. It's his his badge of honor. I have something like that with all my business cards I've ever had.
Oh, that's cool. I keep it in my studio. It's like,
yeah.
So I was working that job. I made a demo in my bedroom of some instrumental stuff, the stuff, you know, that same instrumental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And dubbed off some cassettes, made a trip down to LA. I had made some friends in LA. And a buddy of mine was like, hey, I've got somebody who wants to hear your demo when you get it done. And I was like, oh, cool. It's a guy named Dave Weiderman, worked at Guitar Center forever. He ran the Rock Walk when they would induct people in the Rock Walk out in front of Guitar Center Hollywood. And so I get down there and I have this little thing of cassettes, you know, and he takes a few and he goes, hey, I want you to run and drop one off at this address. And my mom's with me, you know, and it's on Santa Monica Boulevard. I'm like, cool. So we go there and we drive up and it's the Sony Music Building. And I was like, how are we even going to get in? I mean, you can't go into Sony Music. So you can go into the lobby, and the lobby is an armed security guard and 2 elevators. That was it. Or there might even been 1 elevator. I don't remember, but we go up to the security guy, and I'm like, "Can I help you?" And I give him my name, and he said, "Yeah, come on in." And I was like, "No, oh my gosh!" So we get in, we go up the elevator, get out, and we are in the Columbia Records A&R department.
Oh wow! You're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and I'm going, and nobody gets to come in here. And walk in, and they direct me over to this office, and I go, or this guy comes out, and it's Randy Jackson.
Randy Jackson from?
Well, now everyone knows him from American Idol.
Okay, right. Back then he was an A&R guy.
He was an A&R guy, bass player. He played in Journey for the Raised on Radio tour and album. And so I was familiar with Randy, but this was all pre-American Idol. And,
sure.
You know, his whole shtick, like, yeah, man, I don't know. It's just, that's literally, none of that's made up. That's how he talks.
That's how he talks.
What's up, dog? You know, he was that way the whole time. So, Lincoln, man, yeah, man, what's up? So I give him this cassette, and yeah. Well, man, Dave says, great stuff about you, da da da. It was a few minutes. That was it. Gave him the cassette, and we left. And I didn't hear anything.
What's funny is that you're there with your mom.
I know. But we were like, so partners, And so we leave, and like 2 months goes by. Nothing. And I'm just like, oh man. The phone rings, and my mom answers the phone, and I remember sitting out near the kitchen, and she goes, "Hey, honey, phone's for you." And I said, "Do you know who it is?" And she goes, "It's Steve Perry."
And she knew who Steve Perry was because she's into music. Yeah, that's really cool.
And I went, like, who is it? And she said, "I don't recognize the voice." And the reason I asked is because I had a bunch of friends who would like send pizzas to my house, and like it was constant getting in trouble, and just
when you get a call like that, it's like doesn't compute. It's like, oh, Steve Perry's.
Yeah, my buddies for sure would have done something like that, and these were the guys who we used to take jack handles and shoot bottle rockets at cars when they so I get on the phone. Hey, yeah, it's Steve Perry. And I knew his voice right away because I had seen him in interviews on MTV and VH1. And I was just like, this is
yeah.
And then, but I put together real quick, Randy Jackson, like.
Okay, so you had a frame of you had a context right away.
Well, because I'm going, this can't be real.
You're like, hey man, do you have the wrong number?
Well, Steve Perry doesn't call your house.
Yeah.
And then I went, Randy Jackson played with him. So did he? And then I hear my demo playing in the background.
Oh, right on, man.
It was like he heard it and immediately just grabbed the phone. And there was this one track on there called Cry that was kind of a Jeff Beck inspired thing, and so Steve and I ended up talking on the phone for like a couple hours.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and he was going, yeah, I'm from San Joaquin Valley, from Hanford, and then he was like, well, hey, here's my number. I'd appreciate it if you don't give this to people.
Did he actually say that?
I know. Yeah.
That's kind of funny, to be honest with you.
No, it's hilarious. Like, oh, really? I was going to go like.
Well, I was going to, just about to invent eBay and put it on there.
Right. I know. So he said, well, hey, if you happen to be in LA, like, look me up. When I just had to check my calendar,
Yeah. Well, I'll be there funny tomorrow.
My mom and I scheduled the trip. We drove down. We stayed at, the Travel Lodge on Sepulveda. And I remember like there being like blood on the stairs that you had, the outdoor stairs. And
we should encourage people to have a campaign now to write letters to Steve Perry. Like, how do you allow this guy to stay at the Travel Lodge?
Right.
With blood on the stairs. Oh my
right.
God.
So we go, and then I call him, and he's like, well, hey, why don't we just go grab lunch? I'll come pick you up. And he comes to the Travel Lodge, picks me up.
Did your mom come to lunch with you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And we went to a place called Cafe Cordial, which was like Cafe Cordial on Ventura, which was like a pretty hopping spot back then. And we had lunch, and it was totally surreal. Like,
yeah.
And then we went back to his condo. And we're just sitting talking, and I'm sitting in Steve Perry's condo. It was the strangest, and I didn't tell a soul. Like, no one knew, and there was no iPhones or Instagram or
Yeah.
um,
Steve, let's get a selfie.
yeah. Hey man,
Hey, before I go, man.
he would not have been down with that. And he said, "Well, hey, so do you want to get together and play?" And I was like, "Sure."
Okay. Did you know the whole time that the preface of this was he was interviewing you to see if you were interested in being in his band or being his guitar player?
No, I didn't.
So like you just, it was just.
It was so random and
yeah, it's kind of weird.
It was just, and so I just said, well, yeah. And he goes, "Who should we get to?" I swear to you, this happened just like I'm telling you, no exaggeration. We're sitting in his living room, and he goes, "Okay, when do you want to, like, tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Sure." I had brought my guitar.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Who should we get to drum?"
He's asking you?
Yeah. And as a joke, I said, "Let's get Terry Bozzio."
Yeah.
Because I knew Terry a little bit. I had met him. He was one of the people through the small group of people I met in LA that I got to know. And he goes, "Okay." Calls his management office, and like the next day we're at Third Encore out by the Burbank airport in their big room, which was bigger than any room I had ever played in my life. And we're rehearsing in there. And
you, Steve, Terry, and was Randy on bass?
No. So I walk in and I see Terry's drum kit. And at the time, I am like the biggest Guitar Shop fan. That album like changed my life.
Right.
And so Terry's sitting there, or Terry's kit set up, and I'm just this whole massive black, crazy kit. And then the keyboard player / rhythm guitar player for the group Winger was there, Paul Taylor.
Oh yeah, man. I had Paul on my show. He's a really talented musician.
He's amazing. Do you have Paul?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah. I had him on the show.
Dear friend.
That's funny, man. Small world.
Yeah. And
he's a very talented guy, man.
He's a freak. Yeah. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he is a good dude.
So so Paul's there, and I was a huge Winger fan. And then a bass player who plays now with Steve Vai, who
Philip Bino?
Yeah, Philip.
Yeah,
Bino.
Sure.
Like one of the sweetest human beings.
Yeah, he's a very nice person. Yeah.
Who I haven't seen I probably haven't seen Philip in 15 years at least. He doesn't look like he's aged a day.
No, he hasn't, man. He looks like he's about 35, man.
Yeah, he's
older than me.
Is he really?
He's like a couple of years older than me. Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, dude, I don't even want to interview you. I just want to know, what do you take?
I would love to get his info.
I'll hook you up. Yeah, I'll absolutely. Philip?
Reach out to him. Yeah,
Philip?
Yeah,
totally cool, man. Yeah.
So that was the lineup, and we had, I think Steve said learn 2 songs, so we learned like "Send Her My Love" and "Only the Young," and we get up and play, and it was crazy. I mean, I was going from Modesto working at Wilson's, and then I flew to LA, or we drove down, and then the next day I'm doing that. And were
you missing Wilson's at all anytime? You're like, man, I wish I was selling a leather jacket right now.
There was a moment, so we took a break, and then like get done with the break, and Terry walks up on the stage, and I walk up on the stage, and I got my guitar, and he's got his, he sits down, and it's just the 2 of us. And I go into.
And you're a lot younger than most of these guys.
Yeah, I was 20.
Yeah.
Was he?
So you're like 10 years younger at a minimum of than everybody else.
14 years. Yeah. I might have been 19 or 20. It was
pretty crazy. I always, I hear this a lot. I think that I give people a lot of credit for doing that because as it is, the celebrity factor is like overwhelming, but to keep it together, and then you add a 10, 15 year spread in age and experience. It's tough. It's a commendable thing to keep it together there, man.
I remember having some moments that day of, hey, keep it together. Like, I'd sort of step outside of myself for a second and go, holy crap, I'm in here with. So, and one of those moments was I go up, Terry's there, grab my guitar, and I play this riff.
From Zappa?
No, it's Beck. It's
Is that the car?
Big Block.
Okay, right.
And all of a sudden, and we start playing, and I'm like,
oh my God.
Make a Wish, you know.
Yeah.
It was freaky. So it was super, super cool. And that was the day Steve looked at me and he said, he goes, hey, do you sing? And I went, yeah. And then I'm like, I don't sing. Why did I say yes?
Everybody says this though, man. Everybody does it.
He goes, okay, so here's your part. And we learned the calling out your name, I'm dreaming.
Yeah.
In Send Her My Love. And so he taught me a part for that. And we got the vocal part going. And I just sang, like I just blurted it out, which is literally when I started singing, is that moment.
Right on, man.
And so, yeah, that was, and so I went home and then he called me and, hey, so we're thinking about getting together again. I'll have my manager call you. So I'd go back to work at Wilson's there for whatever. And then they'd be like, hey, we need you to fly down. We'll fly you down and get you a hotel and everything. So I go, hey, can I get like 2 days off? And then go, okay. And I'd go down to LA and, freak. The next day, the next time I went down, it was in a different room, but I think.
Travelodge or upgrade?
A little upgrade. I was at the Hilton Universal.
Right on, man. As it should be. And
send a car over, and there's another guy waiting in the lobby, and he looks really familiar. And then I go get in this car, and he gets in the car, and it's a drummer named Kenny Aronoff.
Oh yeah, Kenny on here too. Yeah.
Kenny's awesome.
He's a force of nature.
He is. And so, yeah, Kenny comes, and I'm like riding, going like, Mellencamp, like, and he's like, hey man, and I became friends with Kenny. And
oh dude, he could talk to an ashtray. Believe me, that guy is like very conversant. Yeah,
he was great. So and then it was like this string of flights down, and who I never knew who I was going to be walking in the room playing with. There was that first day, so I got to tell you this was freaking amazing. So we get Bozio, and
so Kenny did the session the next time.
Yeah. So no, I'm messing this up. Bozio did the first one. Then I came back down, and there was a drummer, an English guy named Tony Baird. Freakishly good player. Just, he was fantastic. It's a wild man, but he was fantastic. And then who was the Phil bass player? He used to play with Jeff Beck.
Phil Chen?
Yes.
Oh.
Phil was playing bass the next time, which was so rad. Like, and then Paul was still there. So me and Paul kind of stayed common. And because I think Steve, in his mind, looking back, kind of went, okay, I have Neil and Jonathan-ish, not to say I'm Neil, but
right.
He had his two people filling that. Paul was very melodic on the keys, and Steve loved that, so he kind of had that Jonathan gear. And then I think he liked my melodic approach to playing, similar to how Neil would approach solos, very singable and that kind of stuff. So it's Tony, and I think Phil might have been there this day, but I think this was the second time I went down. We're still in this huge room. And then Steve's like, hey, we're going to go say hi to somebody. So we go across the parking lot, and there's room A, B, and C across the parking lot. And we ended up going to room B, and we were there for like 6 months. So every band, I mean, Van Halen was there for a month, and Ozzy, and hanging out with all these people. It was just crazy.
Was that any funny stories?
I will get to those. Yes.
Okay.
So we go over to room B, and we walk in, and my deal back then was I could tell a band by looking at their gear. Like, even if it didn't say it on the kick drum head, I could usually look at the gear and know who it was. And walk in, this band is set up, full stop rock band. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. Marshalls, and we're kind of waiting around, and all of a sudden there's like an office inside the rehearsal halls with a phone and stuff. And these guys, they'd been on a phone call, and these guys come walking out of the office, and it's Spinal Tap.
How funny is that? Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But not in costume. And I am like, this is not happening. So we sit down. There's like these couple couches.
Really funny.
We're sitting on the couches with Michael McKean and Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer.
Harry Shearer, yeah.
And hanging out. And we're talking to him about, and Steve's like,
were they in their shtick? Were they doing they were just being normal? I asked because sometimes people, like, I had Satchel from Steel Panther on here.
Okay.
And he's like in gear and everything. And at the time we didn't do video. I'm like, we're not recording. He has his wig on and I'm like, hey, Russ, we're not videoing. He goes, oh, that's okay. I know. So I didn't know. Maybe he needs to stay in gear. It was really weird. It was quite funny.
No, they went. So this was kind of cool. Steve asked him a question and said, hey, so do you guys actually have problems like you make fun of?
Interesting. That's a good question, actually.
Yeah. And they went, oh yeah, definitely. Like we're still a band. And then they're like, it might be something like, and they went into character.
Okay.
It played out an argument they've actually had. And it was,
that had to be pretty cool to see that, right?
I mean, I wish I would have appreciated it even more in the moment, but it was pretty legendary. When it was so their second album, Break Like the Wind, had come out.
Break Like the Wind.
So genius. And they were doing drum auditions. Do you remember this at all? So
not at all.
They were auditioning drummers because they kept having their drummer spontaneously combust. Remember?
Oh yeah. Okay. I've never really been into that thing, but I know that storyline. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so funny. And so to do drum auditions, they rented LA Coliseum.
Oh my God.
Like set up, and they had drummers show up to this 100,000 seat stadium. So good. So yeah, it was pretty epic. So the next, basically, well, after, I don't know, 3 or 4 of those trips, I got a phone call like, hey, so you're in the band. And
from management.
Yeah. You're in the band. Steve wants you in the band. And then I would just pretty much keep flying down, and we auditioned, I think, 50 drummers.
Oh my God.
And probably 30 bass players.
Wow.
So I got to play with everybody.
What was he looking for that he had to go through?
I mean, I would say, if I had to describe it, Steve's roots are Motown.
Right.
Like Sam Cooke. If you really listen to his singing. It's rooted in old R&B roots, Motown. He's really not so much of a rock guy. That was Neil.
After Steve Perry, you spent a few years in California, moved to Nashville, and then you moved back to California. And if I'm correct, that's when your solo career really began taking off. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I started it in Nashville, but yeah, it didn't. I couldn't get arrested in Nashville, and then everyone told me, "Oh, if you move to California, your career's over." And I'm like, "What career?" You know, I was playing in puppet tents, and moved out to California, and it was crazy. It was like we got here and started having, top radio songs, and yeah, it was kind of.
What do you attribute? Like, what happened differently, or like or did you just start taking a different approach to your own career, or like did you start doing more self-care for, like, we've talked
I didn't
about
do anything really. I mean,
don't say that, because then everybody will be like, he didn't do anything and he just moved to LA and stuff happened. Yep.
No, not LA.
It's magic there.
No, I think what people need to understand is I left the place where you would go to do what I do.
Yeah. Which
It
is
was,
Nashville.
and honestly, one of my, I don't know if I got to think about this. I don't know if I just kind of think this, or if I have a core belief on it or what, but in my life, I feel like God has tended to work in this theme, and it shows up pretty consistently, and it's like the thing that doesn't make sense is the thing I'm supposed to do. So
interesting.
And that feels, and the thing that I'm not qualified to do is the thing that I should do. So that's been consistent. And it's like when I left Steve Perry's gig to go take a job at a church in Modesto, it's like, who does that?
What happened with Steve's gig? What made you leave? Was the gig pretty much over, or?
Well, it was paused, and he got really sick. He had like chronic bronchitis, and it kept flaring up. And so we were supposed to do a Japan tour. So I jokingly say that all of my gear has been to Japan, but I haven't. And then it just kind of paused, and I was back up in Modesto because of the Northridge earthquake, and so I started. That's kind of when I started serving at my church, and just fell in love with it, and then had an epiphany one day that was what I was supposed to do. I was making, they offered me a job, and I was making the job they offered me. I was going to make less than half in 1 month of what I made in a week with Steve. And, wasn't enough to pay our bills. And, it was crazy. It was, but I knew it was what I was supposed to do. And
did you have any side hustles so you could eat and stuff?
No. I mean,
you just humped it for a while.
Well, and my wife cuts hair, and so she, we kind of figured it out. But it was trust. It was like, we sat on the couch in our apartment and cried when I got the phone call to accept it for the job, just because we knew it was a big step of faith. But
wow,
we have always, I've never known, any church I've ever worked at, I've never known what my salary was going to be before I said yes. Because I've always tried to, live off of calling, what am I supposed to be doing?
Right.
And God's going to take care of the rest. And every step of the way that's happened. And so, it's kind of that confidence thing,
yeah.
Just going, I'm confident that God's going to take care of us. And I don't know how or what, or, what that's going to look like, but But
But how did all of a sudden your solo career start taking off?
well, yeah. So I started at the church, and then I was going to give up music. Like I was just like, this is what I'm supposed to do, I guess. I'm working at a church, and I had such a sense of peace about it. And I remember going to the NAMM show that first year that I took that job, and gosh, dude, it was like my wife was with me, and people were running into me. And you remember that magazine Metal Edge?
No, I don't remember that one. Sorry, but I know there's tons of magazines over the years.
The lady who was the editor of that wrote an article about me.
In Metal? Oh, why?
Because she had done a bunch of stuff on me and Steve Perry's band and all that. And then she heard that I left to go work at this church. And people were like, he lost his mind. It was not cool. And it was a really not a cool article. And
do you want to out her right now?
I get it. Listen, it made no sense. Who would do that? It was career suicide. And
I don't subscribe to that, man. I'm so like I just feel like, man, do what you want to do. I mean,
well, but I get, and that's really cool. But if people are looking for logic in it, there was no logic. It was crazy. So
well, I
just got treated poorly at NAMM.
There's no logic to somebody else, but like everybody makes decisions. You know what I mean? Everybody makes decisions based on something. Like it's none of any of our business how. Yeah. But I'm not a guy that writes articles. And I'm not saying anything against this woman, but I think a lot of times maybe that's part of the, they're looking for that.
Yeah.
You get, I guess, the truth is you'll get more readership if you had a headline, that's like, is Lincoln Brewster crazy? Then, hey, this is so cool that Lincoln Brewster, like,
yo, yeah.
So I think
he sells, but who's buying?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think too, there's an element to it that when people see somebody who gets something that millions of people want to get to, and they happen to be one of the people that got to it, and then they throw it away seemingly, that's hard to get your head, so but it was hard because there was no affirmation in it. Obviously there was, it came at a cost. And so at NAMM for 3 days, I walked around the floor just getting, and my wife would look at me and she'd go, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, people would just give you crap all.
Yeah. Dude,
really?
I heard, like, you're at a church or what's going on? Yeah.
But that's you don't have to be religious to just assume that someone does that because they have they have a calling. It's not like
most people don't.
Really?
No,
I'm not even I'm zero religious, and I would just it just seems like if you go to work at a church, it's like you have a vested interest in that, in ministry or in like faith or whatever.
Christianity's still is, it's, I don't know if we talked about this before. I feel like it's the one faith people can beat up with. Yeah, we did. And not, there's no backlash, it's, you can say whatever you want about Christians. But anyway, it was challenging. And, but I started working at the church. I was like doing, sound stuff and wiring PA systems and, doing all that kind of tech stuff. And then one day they asked me to lead worship for the youth band. And I'm like, I didn't even know what that meant. And get up and do the song. I didn't know any of the songs. I had no church background. So I just remember going in and going like, yeah, some of these songs are cool. Like they're pretty and melodies are cool. But the style is like, like what kid would want that?
You got till Sunday to learn this set.
And it's like, so I just thought, well, why not just put different music to these songs? Like, like keep the melody, keep the song intact so people will be able to sing it. We'll just change the
arrangement.
Yeah, so we changed the band to like a power trio, and we had like drums, bass, guitar, and then we had a keyboard player, and then a girl who sang, and that became. And then I think actually we might have even ditched the keys. Did we keep the keys? Our bass player sometimes would play keys, so it was just a trio and the girl, and then he would sometimes play bass and key, like low hand bass keys. But we just reworked all these songs, and man, it was really a cool season of, I was learning. I had taken vocal lessons when I was with Steve. He sent us to his vocal coach for like a year. And then I started writing songs for the youth group. Just, that's all. That was my only motivation, was to do that. And so and then I was making demos at home of some of the songs, no aspirations. And then I ended up getting invited to help start a church in Nashville. And so that's why we moved to Nashville. And then through that, I met some guys from this record company called Integrity Music. And they offered me a record deal after they heard one of my demos.
Okay, so you moved to Nashville just once.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you came back here, you had already connected with those guys.
Yeah, and they gave me I wasn't even trying to pitch a deal. It was like, I showed them one song because I was working on a different project for our church with those guys, and I said, what about something just stylistically like this? And I played it for them, and they were like, whoa, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's just a song I recorded. And they literally offered you on the spot, like, and I've been with that label for over 20 years.
Oh my God. Did they also say, before you get this, get your mom, go to the building and ask for Randy Jackson? That would have been, how weird would that have been? That would have been.
We just want to keep it consistent.
That is wild. And you've been with them for 20 years. So basically, okay, so let me ask you this. I'm pretty sure I know your answer. As a guy who's faith-based and who has a deep belief in God, I'm assuming your thought process is, God brought me here to do this, and that was part of the plan, was for this would unfold. I mean, I shouldn't say I assume. Is that what your thought process is? Like, you know, there was something else going on, you just didn't know what it was at the time?
At the time, no, that was not my thought process. In very short order, the church situation that I went to help with turned into a nightmare. And
oh my God.
Yeah, it was not good. And went through like serious bout of depression, anxiety, panic attacks. Like it was horrible.
Oh my God. What happened? If you're comfortable talking, if you're not, that's totally cool. But to whatever extent you want to share it.
It was just,
let's skip it, man. I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
Well, no, it's just, I think it's important because it's sometimes, you know, people get hurt in settings that like I have a hard time saying anyone's a bad person. You know, that's pretty rough. That's gnarly to say that about somebody, and it's even gnarlier to claim that you would ever know that. But what can happen, and it probably happens most of the time, is people get into a position of power who, and it comes down to skill set. They're like not good. You know what I mean? It would be like handing somebody a flamethrower, doesn't know how to use it, you know, and
Yeah.
But
Okay. So they.
they're the designated
Okay.
flamethrower guy, and they're like, "What?" It's Chevy Chase. And so they become really dangerous, but it's not because they're bad. And people get actually hurt.
I guess.
And so I think that's what happened. And it was not a real healthy faith environment.
Yeah.
Some of the theology, or the belief system, definitely the Bible. I've heard people say it's not that we believe different things; it's that we highlight different verses. I got pretty disillusioned with church, and honestly was at a place where I was like legit questioning my faith. Like, I don't even know if I believe this.
Even though all this good stuff was going on career-wise. Oh man,
Yeah.
it must have been a real negative experience there for you to be feeling that strong about it.
When you are in a place where you trust people of faith and that gets violated,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what else is going on. I mean, that is brutal. It's one of the most painful things I think that you can experience, and it was crazy. And so yeah, there wasn't. It really rocked me and my wife, and we had moved across the country to go do this. And there wasn't a lot of compassion, and so as I was trying to figure out that, this record company I was in the middle of like negotiating my deal, and I'm literally going, I don't even know if I'm a Christian anymore.
Oh, and this is a faith-based label.
Yeah. Important,
Hey guys,
we have a problem.
I love the deal, love the setup.
Yeah.
I'm down. Potential issue.
Yeah, the whole Jesus thing might be a problem.
Yeah.
So dude, I went down, they were based in Alabama at the time. They're in Nashville now, but I went down and I met with the A&R guy, and I felt bad because I thought, I can't in good conscience sign this deal without telling this guy this. And so I went down, and I was down there to do a few things, and then on the last day, I think I went and sat in his office, and I go, "Hey, I need to talk to you." He goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "Here's the deal." And I told him everything. I said, questioning my faith. I've been really burned and betrayed, and the whole thing. And I said, I had to tell you before we go any further, because I'm assuming this means you're probably out, and I understand that. Unless
they have a division called Not So Much Integrity for the not so faith-based roster.
Wing.
No problem.
It's the guy who runs it out of the back of the distro warehouse. So I tell him all this, and I'm like, once again, it's career suicide.
Oh, but that's really, man, you got to look, you're doing something on a premise. I totally understand and would support that. You have a whole premise that you connected with these guys under, and that premise potentially doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah. It's not career suicide. It's career suicide if you go ahead and do it and you didn't discuss it and you don't feel good about it. It's like, then you're like really a jackass.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this goes back to the first deal I got when I was 17 or 18 or whatever. And I bought it. It's like, doing the right thing's a pain in the butt sometimes,
Yeah, usually.
And so he looks at me after I share all this stuff, and he goes, I've been there. And if you saw the guy, you would never guess. He was the most clean-cut, business looking, and I was like, are you serious? And he told me his story and his faith journey. And it was wrought with challenges, and he's like, so he talked for a little bit, and I said, so are you saying you still want to like move forward? And he was like, of course. Like, dude, we believe in you. And when we told you that we feel like God made it clear to us to support you, like, that's not changing. And I said, well, what about, what I told you? What do we do? And he said, we'll support you as you figure it out. And
oh, that was, man, talk about a pressure release valve.
I'll never forget it.
Wow. That had to make you feel like incredibly, like grateful, but like you just took a lot of, you just it took a lot of pressure off you.
Yeah. And that's like, that was a great, like that's what biblical grace and mercy looks like, is he wasn't judging me. He wasn't, well, we'll have to figure that out. And, we'll have to put something in the contract. It was, and because of that, here we are 20 some years in, and lots of music and lots of people encouraged over the years, because he was so cool about it. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So that was probably the beginning of the restoration of my faith in people. Like I went, it was like, gosh, I haven't experienced that in a while, where, do
you want to give that guy a shout out, man? That was pretty cool.
Chris Thomason.
Yeah. Chris Thomason. Right on, man. Yeah.
I love that guy. I haven't talked to him in years, but he's a gem of a person, man. He's so, So
very cool, man.
Yeah. And Chris was a great, he's not with Integrity anymore, but he was always an encourager and supporter of me, so that was kind of there's a lot of things inside of there. And then, get my record out, but everything was hard, so many people think, oh, it's been easy for you. It's like, it's been everything but easy,
Yeah, I don't know that. I think anybody who thinks anything is easy for anyone is just probably has not done anything, to be honest with you. Nothing. I've talked to, honestly, I've been working for myself for 22 years. I've talked to, at this point, over 700 guitar players, but probably another 300-400, business owners in that time. I don't know any of them that had it. I literally don't think I know one guy. Maybe I think some people have a head start.
Sure,
but
some people have a quicker journey.
Yeah.
Some people, some things happen. But I think whenever we see someone have success, like where they show up one day, you go, oh, well, yesterday they weren't doing anything.
Right. So that's the assumptions, like, oh man, they don't realize you were sleeping in a van in Michigan in the middle of the winter time. Yeah. Right.
No, nobody puts those things together. And
people who have done things and worked for stuff do put it together, I think. But I hate to say this, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way. Most people really give up because things are hard. And the people that don't give up have to get a lot more hard stuff, but then hopefully something works. And sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times it does, but you can't give up. That's like the vetting process for success, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's perseverance, man. You gotta stay, as they say in motocross, my favorite sport, you gotta be in it to win it,
Yeah, man. What's your pain threshold?
You gotta keep going and just don't quit.
Do you know, this is really cool. Do you know who Dan Baird is?
Gosh, why do I know that name?
He is the founder and the writer and the guitar, one of the rhythm guitar player and the vocalist from the Georgia Satellites.
Oh, wow.
And I had him on the show. His interview actually comes out, I think, to Friday. But he made a comment. It was great. He said something like, it was really good. It said like, something like, you know, how much of this shit can you handle, or something like that, you know? And that's the governor of you know, success. How much shit can you handle? And I thought it was really accurate for anybody in any, whether it's musician or, you know, computer programmer or whatever, you know, candy store owner, you know, that's it. You know, you got a lot to go to weed through.
Yeah.
What a great story, man.
Yeah. So that's like, you know, it's always interesting to even retell it, because, you know, to retell it is a little bit to relive it. And when I look back on that, like I go, you know, when things get challenging now, I look back and I go, man, God's been super faithful to me. You know, it's crazy I'm still doing this, you know, like I'm 20 something years in, and I just finished another record, and, you know, I'm still driven and still, you know, I got to go in and record like a couple more songs for the record I just found out. So,
whatever happened to the person that caused you to have so many issues? Are they still around, if you know, even?
So he has since retired. Yeah, he retired. You know, we, even with that, we wanted to leave well. When I got the job offer to come out here to Sacramento, I told my wife, like, I felt like we should like go back to that church, and she was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I was like, I feel like we need to go back there just until we move, which would have been about 3 or 4 months. And I said, I believe in this concept of, which a lot of people don't do anymore, but if you can be like from where you currently are, even if things aren't good, if you can be sent to your next thing, like, that's best. So, and obviously we didn't want to stay there. We didn't feel called to stay there. It was injurious. It was, you know, all that stuff. So, so I went back and like talked to him, and cause we went to a different church and all this stuff for a while. And, so I called him, and I think we had lunch, and I said, "Hey, we want to come back. But we're going to move, you know, we're moving." And he kind of went, you know, like, "Well, I don't think that's right. You know,
what, that you're moving or that you're coming back?"
that we're moving.
Oh my.
Which was part of the problem. And I just said, "Listen, we're not asking for your permission. We're just."
Yeah, Dad, I'm sorry you don't think it's right. I mean,
but I said, "But we would appreciate your blessing." And he said, "Okay." So we came back, went to the church, and they had us get up in front at the end and prayed for us, and
wow,
took an offering for us, and we were sent here because I had every justification to not do that. But my thought was, if you really are like, you'd have to work really hard to leave poorly. Like, if you're willing to make some compromises, I think most people can leave well in most situations. It's just, we get emotional and it kind of prevents that. And I kind of feel like the way you leave one place can determine a lot about how it goes at the next place. And
yeah, well, if that's how you felt, then yeah.
We never I've never left a church poorly. It's always been like, let's work together to work this out, and go on to the next thing going, hey, cool. So it was crazy. We actually saw him a few years ago.
That's wild.
Yeah. And, I just chose to be really gracious and honoring. And
well, it's less stressful when you do that.
Well, but I didn't want it to be for a self-serving reason. It wasn't about that for me. It was actually still kind of stressful, but I guess I just didn't think it would be helpful to bring up a bunch of stuff that I think was based more around a lack of skill and wisdom than it was about somebody who's not a good person. And here's the thing is anybody, like when any of us, I think, get into trouble in relationships is when we start dishing out advice that we're not being asked to give. And, trying to give advice to somebody or observations to somebody who's not asking is like,
oh, it's like slapping your head against the wall. Yeah, you're going nowhere on that one.
Yeah, and so he wasn't asking, and some of the stuff that he said while he was here, I went, he's still stuck,
Yeah.
And he's not asking, so I'm not going to say anything. But
well,
it was
good of you to do that, man.
All real, like encouraging, and I had to sort of get in and extrapolate the good things, and my kids had never met him, and it was all positive stuff. And
yeah.
Again, not that was disingenuous. It wasn't. It's just the other stuff was sort of.
Well, that was good of you, man.
Well, if you ever called me and said, "Hey, I'm at a place in my life where X, Y, and Z has gone on. Would you be willing to like sit with me and tell me your observations?" And I would do it. I still would do it.
See, that's good of you. See, I'm from the Bronx. We would have been like, "You're dead to me." Boom. End the conversation. Done.
And I understand that.
Next.
Alaska's a little like that. Like I grew up on fishing boats. We have that.
Yeah, that's a rough. Yeah, that's not not like. Yeah. No, unicorns and sunshine by a long shot.
I could do that. I could definitely. Because you know what though, it's easier.
Oh, well, I would have been cool, but if somebody hurt my wife's feelings, boom, done. End of conversation. That's where we're done here, man. I can.
Well, but it is easier. It's cleaner. It's, nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
But shutting down communication is a protection mechanism.
Oh yeah, totally.
And, a lot of people do it because it's, oh yeah, it's a tough thing. It's like, no,
safe.
It's the easy, clean,
safe. Can't get hurt anymore.
But you don't get reconciled enough.
Yeah, you can't get hurt anymore, but there's no reconciliation. Yeah.
Right.
And I have done that a lot in my life, and I regret many of that now that I'm older because I don't do that anymore. I'd rather just work stuff out, and it's like so much easier. Just karmically, it feels like it's more of the right thing to do for me. Not only for the other person, but for me, it's the right thing to do.
I am a huge, huge fan of it. It's more work, but it's more reward, for sure.
Yeah.
Typically.
Dude, thank you for sharing that. That was really cool of you. I'm glad it all worked out. Any advice, if you can go back and give young Lincoln advice, anything you would have told yourself to make life easier?
Gosh, we don't have enough time. Yeah, I mean, geez, there's so much, Greg, like so much.
Just pick one thing. Knee-jerk reaction, whatever comes to your head first.
Yeah, gratitude. I would have talked about gratitude.
Be more grateful for what you have and not worry
Yeah.
about what you don't have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm so happy that this worked out for you, man. It's a nice ending. And it's got to feel good, like, too, that you, it's got to feel good to you that you went on this, like, I did this because I thought it was the right thing to do based on my faith. It's got to feel nice that it worked out.
Yeah, it does. It's awesome. It's
I don't even mean financially that it worked out. I mean, like, the journey, that, like, the fulfillment of, you felt compelled to make this decision for some reason based on faith that you really weren't sure of, outside of, I feel it's the right decision. I'm being called, for lack of a better, a more eloquent word, and then it worked, not just with that particular decision, but it worked in life.
yeah.
That's gotta be a good feeling, man.
No, it's like surreal.
Yeah.
The thing you do in the face of criticism and logic and all. I don't know if I said this before. I think I probably did. That book I need to write called How to Rock Your Way to the Bottom.
No, you need to get that woman back who wrote that article from the Metal Edge magazine.
Yeah.
Seriously. Hey, you need to write part 2. Let's do it.
And
because that would be actually a great story.
Yeah, and it made no sense. It was it's God using the simple or foolish things to confound the wise. It's like, this wasn't about kind of worldly logic. It was about trying to do my best to follow the path that I'm trying to find and that I'm supposed to go on. And I'm going, this makes no sense. Why would I do that? And it's crazy is before I took the job in Modesto, like right before they said, okay, well, here's the job offer, pray about it and let us know. Like right then I got several calls to go on tours.
Really?
Yeah. And
anything you can mention that was kind of cool?
One of them was Katie Lang, and she was like big. That was
wow.
Like,
and you know what? I've talked to so many guys that have played for her. She's wonderful to work for.
So it was like my guitar tech, Tom Lowry. You should have Tom on the show, dude. Tom's tech for he's tech for Jeff Beck and Jocko. And,
wow, how wild is that?
And as a lifelong guitar tech, and he's a gem of a human being. And he's a New Yorker.
Hey, we all are gems.
Seriously, Tom would be a great interview.
Yeah, we'll hook it up afterwards. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, Tom started working for Katie and recommended me and called me and said, hey, do you want to do this gig? It's 9 months. Would have been great money.
Yeah.
And so I'm like juggling that.
Like you don't have enough pressure on this decision.
Yeah, it was that. And then there was a band that Jeff Scott Soto was singing in.
Oh, that's cool.
And Jeff called me and said, dude, you'd be perfect for this gig. Like, come.
He's another New York guy. You have a thing with New York people.
You know,
You do.
Jeff's awesome. I love him, and he wanted me to come tour in Europe with them. I want to say there was, you know, I grew up listening to like Night Ranger. You know, they were like a big band in Alaska.
Oh yeah.
So that was one of the bands I got offered to join.
You're kidding me. To replace, like, was that when Jeff Watson left? Or I had Jeff on here. I had Kelly Kagi on here. He's the nicest guy, Kelly, man. He's a
You know what?
real sweetheart of a guy.
I
Got
don't
great
know
stories.
him, but when I was 12 years old, I saw them in Anchorage, Alaska. Went there by myself to Anchorage from Homer, caught a ride with friends, stayed with a friend of my mom's, went to the show myself. I walked in backstage in the middle of the day. Nobody stopped me. Hung out, watched sound check. Like, I got to sit with, and I should know his name, played guitar with Joan Jett. Joan Jett was opening the show. He was a New York guy.
Tony Bruno?
He played like a shell pink Strat. That was one of his guitars anyway. But he sat out in the stand, like in the seats on the floor, and talked to me like while Night Ranger was sound checking. He was the nicest guy.
I wonder who that is.
I'll have to look him up. But and then somebody grabbed me while all this was going on, and like was like, "Hey kid, do you have a pass?" And I was like, "Oh no!" And I hear this guy go, "Don't worry about it. He's with me." And it's Kelly.
Kelly Kagi? That is so. Let me tell you, he's got a great story. He's gotten sober. He had some serious health problems. He's a very nice guy.
That's cool. He brought me into the production office and said, "Hey, can you give this kid a pass?" I still have it to this day.
Oh my, that is so nice.
Signed a drumstick for me. Still have it.
Wow, he's a lovely guy, man. He really is.
It was
really
like one of the greatest days of my life, man. I got then he brought me up on stage and introduced me to this the guy who was like guitar tech at the time named Mark Newman. And Mark tours me around the whole stage and whole thing. And I actually like saw Mark when I moved to Modesto. Night Ranger came through Modesto, and he's like, "Oh," I said, "Hey, do you remember this kid?" He remembered me.
That's wild.
And then years later, I see him again in LA, and I'm playing with Steve Perry.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm like the little kid, you know, up there in Alaska too. And then at the time when I saw him in LA, I think he was working with Ozzy. Kelly's, I just remember him being.
That's so funny. Yeah, he's a nice human being.
But that was one of the gigs that, like, you know, that I was juggling, like, what do I do? You know,
and you still said no. Wow, that's pretty powerful, pretty compelling.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what I was saying no, like, it wasn't like what I'm doing today. You know, that's I try to get that across to people. Like, taking the job at the church I was going to, it was not church of today. You know, it was like there was no guitar really. It was suit and tie, like big flower arrangements on the stage. Band was off sitting in this little pit in the corner with electric drums, little rubber pads. You know, it was.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, so I changed a lot of that. You know, it was like we switched to real drums and then guitar, and then reworking worship songs to make them sound more rock and more relevant and then when I went to Nashville and I got this deal with Integrity Music, that became like one of my things was worship music should sound different, and sort of stumbled into being one of the early people kind of helped change that in church, and kind of helped get it started to kind of become what it is today.
We heard it first right here on Everyone Loves Guitar. Lincoln Brewster reinvented church music, ladies and gentlemen.
I
Praise the Lord.
I somehow was a part of it and didn't know it,
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy.
Hey, as we sit here looking at all your Marshalls and Fender amps, let's talk about gear for a few minutes. Tell me, what's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three?
My go-to is my signature Strat. I think obviously that was a long time in the making.
When did you get that?
That came out last summer NAMM Nashville.
Oh, so NAMM, you got back in good graces at NAMM as well. The whole thing turned around. Look at you.
I know. It was crazy because I walk into Summer NAMM in Nashville, and the Fender booth, I walk in and it's like, the corners of the booth are huge. They're glass.
It's big white. They have a big corner there in Nashville. The whole and dead end there, I think, if I remember right.
I walk in, and my kids are like, "Dad," and I turn around, and it's like this whole corner. It's me, my guitar, and
that's really cool, man.
I'm like, "Holy cow, man!"
Definitely need to get that woman from the Metal magazine and just email her that photo. Tell me about your signature guitar. What kind of stuff did you work on with Fender? Like, how is it? What things are like unique to what you like?
So it started really as like a 57. I'll grab it.
Yeah, awesome. That'd be great. Thank you.
I think it's in the other room. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good, brother.
Okay, I'm going to show you something crazy.
Yeah, man.
This hangs in the bathroom in my studio. We were talking about this earlier. And this was before one of our big Christmas extravaganza things. And it's got a scripture.
Yeah, read it out loud.
It says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up."
Yeah, man. Persistence. That's what we were talking about. Right on.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That is good.
I like looking at that picture.
You like it's in your bathroom, so like you're looking at it when you're taking a dump?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
We got everything on here, man. Hey, what is trivia question? What does Lincoln Brewster look at when he takes a dump?
A good reminder to not give up.
Don't give up.
Which is
that's
apropos.
A beautiful. Which is apropos. Man, what a beautiful color guitar.
Thank you. So I was in a music store in Folsom, and I saw this Strat sitting in the back room. I could barely see it, and I was up getting strings or something, and I was like, "Hey, what's that?" And the guy was like, "Oh, that's this guy's one of the guys who works here. I think he's selling it." And I'm like, "Really?" And I was looking for like a backup guitar, and the guy comes out, and so I bought it off of him on the spot, and that became my main guitar. And then it got stolen.
What was that?
That was just a Aztec Gold 57 like reissue.
Wow, and it got stolen. That's brutal.
Yeah, both my Strats, my main guitars got stolen. So I met the guys from Fender through a photo shoot that I was doing with Boss Roland in LA, and they built me this guitar in the custom shop, and it's like a relic.
Yeah.
And then this guitar, I just kind of kept modifying it, and it became kind of the basis for this. So
tell me about that signature model. That's hey man, congratulations. Not many people have a signature guitar. That's a nice accomplishment. It says a lot.
Thank you. It's really cool. Yeah, I'm super thankful. it took a long time to develop. The company was changing a little bit, and finally, Joey Brassler, who's there, who I've known for like 30 years.
Yeah, we talked about him. I actually contacted him after we spoke.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
He's the best, man. Joey is just fantastic. Are you going to have him on the show?
I talked to him. He wanted to go back and check out the show, but I never heard back. So I'm sure he, if it's meant to be, he'll be on the show.
I'm watching that one. His stories are insane.
And you're not the first guy that told me that.
So anyway, Joey said finally, like, okay, what do you actually want? Let's just start over. So this is what we did. So take a 57 Strat, nitrocellulose finish, head to toe. It's an ash body, like a lightweight ash body. And then the neck, we did a few things that are they're all player ads, basically. So to keep it still looking, it's got like the vintage tint and all that stuff. I added a 22nd fret.
Okay.
But when you look at it, you don't really perceive that. We did vintage locking tuners, so they look exactly like regular tuners. This was a big one. They ended up putting this on the American Professional before mine came out, but it was my idea.
What was it?
A truss rod adjustment in the headstock, but on a 50s style.
Okay.
Because obviously in the old days, you had to take the neck off to adjust the truss rod. And I adjust the truss rod like constantly.
Why is that?
Well, because
you change your string gauge a lot, or
no, the neck changes constantly. Yeah. So the truss rod is like this, like fine tuners on a Floyd Rose.
Yeah.
The truss rod is that for your action. And whenever guitar players change their action at the saddles, you're changing the string angle, which is not good. So if you get these consistent, if your action's different, it's the truss rod.
Very cool.
So I make these little fine adjustments. You can take your finger and put it at the 15th fret, and then go to the 7th fret and press it up and down.
Right.
And it should be about half the width of a credit card.
Yeah, that's way above my pay grade here, where you're going with that. Yeah.
Your fingers can feel it like drastically. So you make these little adjustments with the truss rod, and you can really dial your guitar in constantly. So medium jumbo frets, compound radius fretboard.
Okay, so that changes as you go up and down the neck.
Yeah,
it's
so mine
flatter it gets flatter as you go further down.
Flatter as you go up toward the top fret. So so vintage is 7 1/4. Mine's 9 1/2 here, and then it transitions to 14 at the top.
That's really flat.
But it doesn't feel super flat. But on these, like all the way up here, it's nice and
it's great,
racy. But down here, it still has a little of that vintagey kind of feel to it. Then it's a small, soft V shape. And it literally, I had some Masterbuilt ones done. This one of the necks from the Masterbuilt.
Okay.
And I just sent this neck down and said, "Here, this shape is what I want." Because we worked.
Okay, and it was that small, the soft V.
Yeah, it feels really comfortable. So that's the neck.
Is that a Floyd or is that a regular?
No, so what it is again, I wanted it to have that vintage look to it. So it's a bent steel saddle, 2-post.
Okay.
Another thing that was my idea that they put on the strap was a pop-in bar. So no threaded bar.
Yeah, that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, so these bars just pop in and out.
That's really cool because those springs always fall out, and they're like, when you're old like me and you can't see, like, where do you find that on
the bar? And
yep.
So then did this little heel mod that they have.
Oh, cool.
just so you can get up there a little higher. Okay, then, so the trim actually works great. Like it stays, so mine's set up like floating a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that.
Yeah.
So you can, and it stays in tune killer. Like I work the crap out of it, and
That's awesome, man.
Then electronics.
Yeah, what's the pickups?
One of the cool things. So the pickups are DiMarzio, area 61 in the bridge, area 58 neck and middle, and the wiring is rear tone pot, just on the bridge pickup.
So
So
what is it? What does
so
it
that
do?
tone pot only controls the bridge pickup.
Oh, as opposed to the bridge and the middle.
Well, on the 57's stock, this tone pot didn't control the bridge at all.
Oh, okay.
This tone pot was in the middle. This tone pot was on the neck, and then this was wide open.
Oh, that's interesting. So now you can. What is Area 61 or Area 58? I haven't even heard of those.
They're basically kind of vintage, quiet single coils.
Okay.
So then so I ended up with this tone pot in the middle, not attached to anything. And one of the things I wanted to have on the guitar was some kind of a boost, but I didn't want it to be like overdone, over the top. I just needed more gas on the, because I like the lower output single coils. I think when single coils get too high output, they lose the single coil.
Mm-hmm.
So we, Stan Cody, who's the resident innovation genius at Fender, who again I've known forever. We worked together to do this circuit. So basically, if you just pull up on the volume pot, so this is a push-pull pot,
right?
You just pull that up. It's 10 dB of clean, flat boost.
That's pretty cool, man.
And it sounds unbelievably good. Like I compare it with really high-end boost pedals that do the same thing, like a clean boost. And
that's nice, man.
It's fantastic. So then we had this extra knob.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what'd you do with that?
So that is, you turn on the boost, and it can be, this knob can be anywhere from 0 to 10, and it's a mid boost on top of that. So this has to be on for this to work, but this is like this really musical wide curve, about 650 hertz-ish, nice mid boost.
On any of the, regardless of what pickup you're on. Okay, so you have that mid boost for all of them, but you don't have a dedicated tone control for the neck and the middle pickup.
Correct, and I never
darkened
those. Now, one thing we noticed was in some of the earlier versions of this, like the neck pickup sounded weird to me, and I remember going, gosh, the neck pickup feels brighter than it used to. I'm playing it and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but I hear this really, really high top end on it that I wasn't digging. And then I realized that on my old pickup assembly, even though I never darkened the neck pickup, it was running through the middle tone pot. So Stan, I think it was a cap and a resistor that's just hardwired onto the neck pickup to load it down like a 250K pot. And it took care of that. So it's pretty cool. So
that's awesome, man. That's so cool. It's nice that you got these little things dedicated specifically to you, and they're pretty. They're not like, so, it's not like a house where, the whole thing's painted purple. There's like 2 people in the world that might want it. Those are a lot, like what you have in there is something that loads of people would want to use.
That was the goal. Is I told, I was like, I don't want to do the purple house thing. I want to be part of designing a really great strat. And even down to like, I didn't want anyone to see the battery, because as more of a vintage guy, I don't like that.
Oh, those are active pickups for the Demar.
No, they're passive pickups, but the circuit is active.
Okay.
The circuit's basically a pedal. And so that's what we did.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah,
So-
you know what? I have a battery in those Les Paul pickups there because they're active from EMG. It's so much easier than everybody thinks. It's not inconvenient ever. It's, you know,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I put those in there.
The cool thing, so this is under the back plate of the guitar.
Yeah.
This battery should last a couple of years.
Right.
And the cool part is if the battery dies, the guitar still works fine. It just, if you turn the circuit on, it doesn't work.
Yeah, the 10 dB. Yeah. So that's great because on this it doesn't work at all.
Yeah. So there's no.
That's cool.
I was
So
trying.
so the boost is totally independent of everything else.
Yeah, when you actually
That's
pull the
great.
volume pot up, it's a stacked volume pot. So you're actually using a different volume pot.
Oh, that's great.
So all that happens when the battery's dead is you pull the volume pot up and no signal. So
That's very cool.
but the guitar always works as a Strat, regardless. So when we got it all finished, man, this is turnkey for me. I could walk into a store, grab one of these, adjust the action, and off I go. And so this is what I play. I'm working on maybe possibly doing like a second color.
I was going to ask you if that comes in other colors.
Well, this is the one I want to do.
Oh, Olympic. I love that color, man.
So this is Olympic white, but it's pearl.
Very good. Do they make that with is it only with a maple fretboard?
Yeah. Yes. Currently, it's only with maple, as it's kind of the 50s thing. I'm building one up that's rosewood.
Are you really?
Yeah, because I want the Aztec Gold. I'm kind of a little.
You're visual.
Well, and I'm kind of anal about this one thing. I like strats to appear period specific. So to me, a maple neck strat like this with a small headstock should have a single ply pickguard.
Right.
Because that's how they were. And then if a maple neck Strat has a 3-ply guard, it's got to have a big headstock. So yours has a 3-ply guard, is my guess.
Yeah, but it's not a big headstock at all.
No, that if it's rosewood, it can have a small headstock.
But this one here has a 3-ply. No, it's just 2. This one here is 2.
That's still considered 3.
Is it considered 3? Okay.
Yeah, long as they are period specific. So any rosewood neck Strat should have a 3-ply guard on it.
Yeah, well, please do.
Typically.
I didn't know that. Thank you, man. That's cool. I learned something today. That's awesome.
That's just my own personal thing. Like it always is weird to me to see a maple neck, small headstock Strat with a 3-ply guard. Like I go, doesn't it? That's there might have been a limited time or something where going for. Well, actually, let me think. 50.
Funny, I would never even notice that. That's interesting. You're definitely you're very detailed oriented on that.
Well, in '59, Fender switched to rosewood in '59, but not all of '59. So there are late '50s Strats with rosewood guards or with rosewood fretboards.
I'm so happy I learned. This is cool. This is good. Some like guitar trivia, guitar stuff I learned.
But as a general rule, 50s are maple, 60s are rosewood. And then late 50s, so 59, there's some rosewood neck 3-ply guard guitars where they were transitioning into that 60s look. And then in the late 60s, they went back to maple but it was large headstock. So they went back. They went to rosewood in the '60s, and then large headstock rosewood, kind of '66, I think, ish. And then when they went back to maple, they kept the large headstock. And
This is like the SAT Kaplan review class for guitars, man.
The Hendrix Strat,
right?
The white one, big headstock, maple neck, 3-ply guard. So they look correct. And then the '70s, which that black one you just, well, that one's kind of a non.
This is a weird one. This one came out like a couple of years ago. It's called a blackout Strat. It's got black with little dots in it, and it's an ebony neck. And it's just there's like a not I'm saying limited edition 10,000 guitars. It's not like a limited edition like that, like your guitar or something. But
another thing that's interesting to me too with 50s and 60s is, and again, these are more vintage rule books. So
yeah.
But you see the skunk stripe on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's obviously where they place the truss rod in. But the '60s guitars with rosewood fretboards don't have that.
Interesting.
Because they put it in from the top and then put the rosewood on.
Cool.
So I've got a '64 Strat. So anytime I see a rosewood Strat neck, I don't want to see the skunk stripe.
You have a lot of rules, Mr. Brewster.
It's because there wasn't a '60s Strat that did that. So I want to see it like a '60s. There's something, I feel like guitars are like wearing hats. So, if you put on a cowboy hat, I don't care who you are. If you put on a cowboy hat with any level, and you're not just in a hat store acting like an idiot, there's some cowboy thing that you're like, it's like you want a toothpick or something, or there's a little cowboy mentality.
Yeah, like Lucky Strikes or cowboy boots or jeans.
Cowboy hat, man. Like you're a cowboy.
I get you. No, I get you.
And if you put on like a baseball hat or, if you put on one of those like Zorro hats, or like or a bullfighter, there's a thing that goes with it. You know what I mean? A top hat. You want a cane, and kind of guitars for me are like that. So if I hold a big, if I was to hold like a Super 400 Gibson, I'm not going to think Eruption. I'm going to think like like some.
You need to have a necktie on.
Jazz standards.
Yes.
Like I'm going
to have a necktie and bandlon socks.
Yeah. Play the guitar different. Les Paul for me, I always want to wear it lower. And
you're tall, I think, right? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to hold it lower and a little bit. And
that would be interesting as a guy playing, in the sort of Christian marketplace, if you have like this low slung. And it's been done before.
There's bands that full on, like there's some heavy bands in Christian music who are killer.
Yeah.
No, but so each guitar is a little so.
So your signature guitar is obviously your number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you typically play through when you're on stage?
It depends, and so I've been kind of one of the main proselytizers of modeling for years. So I used a lot of Line 6 stuff over the years. I found a sound in kind of the X3 era, XT, that I just is a really cool tone that I still love. That I still can't duplicate with anything modeling wise. So I still like that sound. Sometimes I still record with it. But I love doing this whole new technology world for guitar players, it's like the best time in the world to play guitar, because there's such a great marriage of instruments that were built the same way that vintage ones were built.
Yeah.
There's new kind of thoughts on guitars as well. And then same with amps. I mean, dude, when in history could you go,
Oh,
there's
selection.
if you like plexis, there's, Sir, there's Friedman, there's Fargen, there's Germino, there's Metropolis. There's like this swath of guys making really good plexis, like correct how Marshall made them. And they sound phenomenal, and they're new and reliable. And
which is awesome, because that's the big problem with an old vintage amp. It's old and unreliable.
Well, especially Vox. Voxes are the worst on that. They sound great, but they're
high maintenance compared to most older vintage.
Oh my gosh! I mean, when the Edge tours, he's got a guy just for Voxes. Like,
oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, he brings a ton of them on the road, and they break constantly. They're one of the.
That's a great situation to be in. You know that. I got my Vox guy on the road with me. Is he your tech? No, that's just my Vox guy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you have to have it, and then that's why the matchless stuff is, people love that stuff so much, because that guy did basically an AC30
bit of Vox,
but built really well. So
let me. Okay, so
I'm using like cabinet impulse response stuff now, which is so cool. It's a cool technology that I'm starting to do now. I'm starting to make my own like library.
Your own. You're going to be releasing. When are these things going to come out, and where would people go?
So my guess and my kind of goal would be early fall.
Cool.
I'm on a break technically. I'm on a sabbatical from church right now.
The whole world is on a break right now.
Yeah, mine started 10 days before the lockdown. So I'm trying to like balance not like doing too much. Currently my studio is a bit of a mess at the moment.
That's good that you're like self-care, man. You're like, I'm on a break. I'm taking advantage. I'm enjoying my, I'm relaxing.
Yeah.
A dirty 4-letter word, relaxing.
So I'm trying to get, without going crazy, just I got to rewire my whole studio, and really, I've got a tracking room in there that's great. I do drums, and now I can do guitars and all that stuff, which I haven't been able to do kind of ever at home. So I'm really getting a lot more time to focus on tone and really go through amps and speakers. And so I haven't, time frame wise, probably hopefully early fall, and I'll be doing Kemper profiles of my amps, and which I'm still curating all my gear from over the years, plus some new things that I'm working on. That there's a couple of really, really cool things I can't mention just yet, but I'm pretty excited about that are I'll be adding to the collection.
Where would people like listening to this now? Should they sign up to your website, or to get a heads up?
Follow me on Instagram.
Great.
That's probably like for keeping the most current, up to date anything, Instagram, which is Lincoln Brewster Official.
Great.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I'm in the process. In fact, my gear is on its way. I'm doing like a multi-camera 4K setup.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll have like 3 cameras in this room, a camera in the drum room. We'll be able to do like live mini concerts from here. When other artists come through, I'll have them over. We'll do all kinds of fun stuff, and
that'll be on your YouTube channel.
Yeah. So, and Facebook's another good Lincoln Brewster Music at Facebook. And then from those places, I'll figure out where I may do the stuff through my website, the
profiles.
Presets. Profiles, presets. Yeah, and I'll be like for people with boxes like Helix, HX Stomp, different boxes. I'm going to do the cabinet IRs will be available, formatted for those boxes.
That's cool, man. It's a nice little project.
Yeah, as well as presets for those. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm diving into. So I'm pretty stoked. I've got some really, really cool stuff, and I'm pretty, one of the things that I do kind of outside and that I did in Nashville when I lived there for work was studio engineering. So
didn't you do the mixing?
I do. I do
did
tracking and mixing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just studio head to toe. I'm into it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So even with the IRs, you're basically miking a cabinet like you would, and then you're capturing the sound of that cabinet, and then you're able to, there's some boxes that allow you to play that stuff back live. Which I'll talk about those things when we do it. But my thing is making sure that that signal path is what you would do in the highest level studio in the world. And that's a combination of, obviously it starts with a great cabinet, with a great speaker. So, people could go, oh, I did an IR of a Greenback 25. Well, there's a lot of versions of Greenback 25s.
Right.
There's originals from different years. Well, then when they get into the early 70s, the pulsonic cones changed. And then they stopped making them, and then they reissued them in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. And those are going to be more broken in typically, but they're different, 6402 cones, and then the new ones. So there's different variants, and then there's different bass response, bass cones, lead cones. And then there's the 30 watt greenbacks, the Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Clapton ones, the G12Hs. And so there's all these different speakers, and then the Van Halen ones, a lot of people think he used the 25s, but he actually used 20s in 70s cabinets. And so there's a lot of not science, but a lot of history behind those tones. So the goal is going to be to really go through and capture a lot of the different variants. And then I've got a little different philosophy on how those things should be done, to give guitar players something that's simple and really usable.
Cool, man.
And so I think sometimes people give guitar players too many options that are more designed for engineers. And
it's interesting you say that. It's you ever watch that show, Gordon Ramsay, or any of those shows?
Yeah.
The first thing he does is go in the menu and say, hey man, you don't need 400 menu items. And I think that's a problem with everything in general, man, because you can get, especially nowadays when the information's infinite, and you become and even me, I see myself, like I want to buy something on Amazon and I spend an hour researching, man, it's a $30 item. I just should buy it, and then that's it. And if it's bad, return it.
Yeah. It's like, there is absolutely option fatigue.
Totally.
And the question for me is like, why? Do I want, like, if I was producing an album and it was a band, and I brought the band in and the guitar player brought his rig in, do I want that guy who may or may not know anything about engineering to go out there and be able to move the microphone anywhere on the speaker that he wants to? I don't. I do not want him doing that job. I've got a couple spots that I know work with certain mics on certain speakers. And then if you want it a little brighter, I'm actually a big fan of going, sometimes if you want something a little brighter, there's two schools of thought. One is, well, then move the mic more toward the center of the speaker. True, that's brighter. That's a different bright than Neve 1084 EQ. And
Okay.
Neve 1084 EQ or 1073 EQ, 1084 is same thing, just a little more flexibility on the top end, but that's going to give you, that's going to accentuate the high end of the tone you like of this mic placement. But if to get it brighter, you actually move the mic toward the center a little more, it's going to change the character and you're going to lose the good stuff about this. So mic placement and occasionally some EQ, you got to use both to really get, that's the way people have done it for years. And so I want to create some just great sounding positions that aren't endless options. It's like, do you like Alnico blues or Alnico silvers for an AC30? Okay, pick one or the other, and then sort of pick your brightness range and go. And that's the nuts and bolts of the sound, you know.
Well, that's cool, man. Sounds like you got a lot of
so there's a lot of work ahead.
Yeah, a lot of work ahead, man.
But it's fun. It's fun stuff. I enjoy it. And there is no reasonable excuse for having bad guitar tone nowadays. There's no excuse.
Are you just doing these independently? Like you're putting these together, or are you working with like a company that's going to?
No, just I'm doing them.
That's so it's just like a new project for you.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I've got tons of, one of my strengths finders is ideation. So I'm like thinking of all kinds of cool options.
You know, you got to be careful of that, because when you're the idea person, you know, there's different phases. Like you're probably great at starting a project.
You got to execute.
Yeah, it's tough.
There's a great book on that called Making Ideas Happen by a guy named Scott Belsky. And it's a great read for anybody who just wants to who's like, man, I get things going, I can't read that book.
There's starters and finishers, and they're not the same people oftentimes.
No, and he breaks down like Disney's approach to how they do. He called it Room 1, 2, and 3. There's a really cool.
Scott Belsky. Yeah,
Making Ideas Happen. Really good book. But yeah, so the idea is just to, you know, I've checked through a lot of, you know, impulse responses and things that are available, and I've done some proof of concept stuff here. Just I've got the cab I use for all the Steve Perry stuff. You know, found the best of the 4 speakers, and with the help of Eddie Van Halen's tech, Matt Bruck, back in the day, and I went out there and stuck the mic right where I've got it marked. It's just ridiculous. It sounds great. And then I compare that to a lot of what's available now from even the best IR makers, and I'm like,
missing out.
I would take what I just did.
That's cool, man.
And so, yeah, I just want to make things available. And again, there's really no 2 cabinets alike. There's no 2 individual speakers that are alike. So everything's going to be a little bit different from different people. And I'm a believer that when you're, you know, doing guitar tracks, you should use, even if you want to use the same amp on the whole record, that's fine. You should definitely remic your cabinet. I mean, if you got 4 guitar tracks to do, use the 4 speakers in your 412. Otherwise, it's going to get a really one-dimensional sound. That's the AC/DC thing, man. They record a track, tear everything down, set up a new sound, and do the next track.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that helps it. I mean, the cabinet has so much to do with the sound of the amp. I mean, you can play 10 amps, different amps, Fenders, Marshalls, through the same cabinet. In a lot of cases, you'll go, they're different, but not super different. but you start changing cabinets, and it's like crazy.
Do you know Jerry McPherson? Did you meet him when you were in
dear
Nashville?
friend of mine, yeah.
He's got a whole setup that validates exactly what you're saying. He's a genius, man. He's
Jerry's
done
awesome.
this. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah,
this.
he's got that motorized mic thing, and
Yeah.
Jerry's a freaking riot.
Brilliant guy. Yeah.
But it's so. With that in mind, the IR thing is going to be this never-ending need. You know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're not going to want to go in and use the exact same one you had last time.
Right.
I want a different color. I want to.
Dude, I'm smelling subscription model.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I'm excited about it. I've got the proof of concepts done. Now I got to get my rig assembled, because like the couple that I did, I was getting under my tape in my studio desk so many times. It was like doing burpees,
Yeah.
So now I just got to get it wired so it's more convenient, and then get the rest of my amps here and the rest of the cabs and start going for it.
Good for you, man. Well, keep me posted on that. That's very cool.
I definitely will.
Hey, 3 more before I ask you 3 more questions, tell me real quick, top 3 Desert Island discs, just for now.
Gaucho, Steely Dan.
First time that's been said.
And that would be a toss-up with Asia. Then I would do Come Away With Me, Norah Jones. And what would be my other one? Gosh, that's a tough one. These aren't guitar albums, but they're.
Doesn't have to be.
There's an album by a band called Hillsong United that's called Empires.
What genre is that in?
Christian, contemporary Christian. And honestly, man, I don't care what kind of music you like or what genre. That's an album worth listening to top to bottom for anybody.
I'm gonna check it out. I've never heard them.
It's a very honest and gritty album. Like it's that, I've shed lots of tears to that record, and that's my go-to, like.
That's your Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, it's like it's a masterpiece of an album, and I think it's cool when, at least for me, when I know the people respond.
It's totally cool when you know someone that it's very special, because I've had that opportunity through the show, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and it means something more when you just know the honesty level that's in it. So It's a great record, and if you really want to go on the ride, just print out, especially the lyrics for the first song, like print those out. And there's a few songs like that on that record, but really their lyrics, you can read them and they read like poetry. I mean, they're just brilliant.
Tell me the best decision you ever made.
I mean, faith in Christ, hands down.
Any hobbies outside of music and motocross?
I like to build stuff. I'm kind of a DIY junkie. So I could design and build houses and be happy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like what have you built?
I mean, I basically general contracted our whole remodel of this house. So
How did you get learn that stuff?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just have been into it. And we had a guy who I hired as a consultant for the stuff that I wouldn't know. You know, there's things with codes, building codes, and how to interface with the city, and you know, things like that. Or hey, I want to do this, what's entailed. But I was boots on the ground, like overseeing those people. And
That's cool, man.
yeah, I mean, it was pretty fun. You know, it's a lot of work, but
It's a ton of work.
we've got like some cool raised garden beds outside. They're pretty big. And my father-in-law and I built them.
That's cool, man.
I like, you know, power tools and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of guitar players are into that. Yeah. Last question, man. I kind of feel sad. I like talking to you. This is like every time I've talked to you, it's like an hour before, an hour after.
We'll do it again anytime, man.
Yeah, that would be great. Biggest change, Lincoln, biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a part of aging?
I think the biggest change, I'm mellower. And that's an evolving process. I mean, and it's been intentional, to, you know, learning to be less reactive. More.
Yeah, I figured whatever you'd be doing is intentional. I know how much effort you put into personal development and stuff. Yeah,
I mean, less reactive, more compassionate.
First of all, thank you for all of your time, man. I really appreciate you. You're a really great guy. You have a great story, and I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing because you're happy at it and you're really good at it. And I know how much effort you put in everything you do, and that is like really impressive for anybody. So thank you. I want to talk about Perfect Love.
Yeah, gosh, it feels like a million years ago. It hasn't come out. You know what? I like need to go back and like listen to the album. I was just kind of thinking about it, like, just because it feels like a lifetime ago, and we just finished it in February. So the concept, I hope everybody, you know, anybody who listens to the record reads the lyrics. Like, it's a really honest record, and there's some moments on it, some highlight moments for me, that the song "Let Me Love You," I hope people listen to that one. That's one of my favorites. It's written from the perspective of God to man, God to humans.
Oh, interesting.
Which I've never done. And it's got kind of a darker, bluesier feel to it. You know, but the whole concept of perfect love is ultimately what has the best shot at solving the plight of humanity, all of the challenges we face. If you know, I tend to be a thinker to go, I call it linchpin thinking. What's the one thing that has to come together for something to work? Or what's the one thing that if it's absent, it won't work? So doing, you know, productions and touring, and there's a lot of that goes on where you have to know kind of the big items where things pivot. And because you can spend a lot of time and effort on details where you go, look, if this one thing doesn't happen, none of that matters. So let's all focus here first.
Right. Any idea when the album will be coming out?
I think October.
Great. Perfect Love, October.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about your instrumental?
Oh gosh, people get I need
That's
lots
like,
of grace and mercy on that to get it done. I'm trying to get some guests that I'm trying to secure. So I'm working on that. So I'm hoping there'll be a silver lining to it.
good.
Because I've kind of got this other thing I started, and that's one of the things I hope to work on a little more over the summer. So it's close. I just got to get it done.
And everybody should check you out on Facebook at Lincoln Brewster Music, Instagram, Lincoln Brewster Official, and YouTube. Same thing, Lincoln Brewster Official.
YouTube, let me see.
Just look up Lincoln Brewster on YouTube.
Yeah, go to my YouTube channel. Yeah. And subscribe.
Man, and subscribe. Yeah, subscribe. Yeah. Definitely subscribe to his YouTube channel. Follow him on Instagram and like his Facebook page. Definitely. Dude, really appreciate everything. You're a good guy. I'd love to. Hopefully you come down to Florida sometime. We'll go have lunch before you play. I
would love that. It would be
good.
It would be my honor, man. You've been amazing, and thank you. It's been
thank you, man.
It's been a joy to chat with you, man.
We have to start lunch at like 6 a.m. to actually finish my lunch.
I love it, man.
Well, thank you for everything. I appreciate it. Hang on one second. I'm just going to wrap this up and then we'll chat. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. If you're not familiar with Lincoln Brewster's music, please check it out. He's a tremendous guitar player, writer, songwriter, and he's just a great guy. Look forward to Perfect Love, hopefully in October. And he didn't talk about it. He's got a very cool instrumental album coming out with some very special guests. Follow him on Lincoln Brewster Music on Facebook, or like his page. Follow him on Instagram, Lincoln Brewster Official, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of cool stuff coming out on that YouTube channel as well. Most important, especially nowadays, man, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Lincoln, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Craig.